DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks, and you're watching NORBCam.
What's up, everybody? This is NorbCam coming at you for another roundtable. It's a little mini roundtable, more like a triangle table, but that's okay because we got a lot to talk about, and the guys who are on here, I really appreciate their viewpoints, and it's going to be, well, it's not going to be, I don't know if I can say it's going to be fun. It's going to be maybe therapeutic and very fascinating to see what these guys' takes are on the team. I know we got 2 games to go, but we're already kind of jumping the gun a little bit to talk a little bit about what the Seahawks need to do in the offseason. And we're going to kind of go through and really literally like talk about each position and who should stay and who should go. And later on, we will probably take some calls on the Discord and see if you guys have any comments of your own. But before I do move forward with the topic, we got to meet our roundtable guests right here. So let's bring them on. Of course, we got Daniel Dovinh of the Dovinh Group at Marketplace Sotheby's, my sponsor. So Daniel, thanks for joining the show, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And over there in snowy Pullman, Washington is Squabo Says. Squabo, it's always a pleasure to be able to collaborate with you talking Seahawks.
The honor is mine, Norb. It's crazy. Every single time, we come on and do a show, I shake hands with somebody. I meet somebody that's like, hey, haven't I seen you on NorbCam before?
Really?
Happens. I joined the NFC West Roundtable this week, and a couple of guys that already recognize me from your channel. And I just credit to you, man. You've really built something here.
Thank you, man. That's great. I'm glad you can also rep the Seahawks in these other places too. So, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year to be repping the Seahawks and try to keep a positive outlook because, as we all know, 5-10, 2 games to go, meaningless games. Yet we still have a home game on Sunday against Detroit. And then, of course, wrapping up the season against the Cardinals. But I do want to get, because I constantly, everywhere I talk to, everyone I have conversations with, whether it be strangers or friends, they all have an opinion about Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll and what the Seahawks need to do. And I want to get your guys' opinions because I really want to see what you guys think. And so we're going to kind of dive into all of that. But let's just jump right into this. I guess before we jump in, I do want to give you guys a chance to at least talk a little bit about yourselves. I already introduced Daniel as my sponsor. And so for those of you who've been watching my shows all year, I've had the dive in with Dovinh, and he's also joined on the roundtable. But Daniel's been kind enough to support my channel, sponsoring as a partner since the beginning. He did a little bit of last year, and we partnered up this year, and it's been great. So I really appreciate you, Daniel. And just tell everybody a little bit about where you come from. What is the Dovinh Group, and why should they pay attention to what the Dovinh Group is?
Yeah, appreciate you asking, and I love being here and supporting your channel. And yeah, I'm actually born and raised in Seattle. I was born in Ballard back when Ballard Swedish Hospital still had kids delivered there. And so grew up in town here, big Seahawks fan. My grandpa was the biggest Seahawks fan growing up, and that's my mom's dad. And he would always smoke a cigarette and throw his slippers at the TV. And, he'd watch in the 70s and 80s when the Seahawks were pretty okay on defense and pretty bad on offense. So he never got to see the glory days, but, that was instilled in me from a young age, just having a lot of passion, never knew any other team. And as far as Dovinh Group, I started a real estate team. We're 11 people strong right now. We're based out of Bothell, Washington. We serve all of Pierce, King, Snohomish County. And we've sold homes as far as East Wenatchee, as far as down south in Vancouver. I've traveled all the way up to Semiahmoo, basically Canada, to help clients. And, the biggest thing is we like to do luxury at every price point. So we help buyers and sellers, no matter what the price point is, we give them the best service. And we're with Sotheby's, which has been around since 1744, really knows how to, take care of people and sell really, really nice stuff. So we started out as an auction house, and now we are specialized into real estate. and very, very happy to be here. And it's for our team, it's all about service, no matter what the situation is. Even if someone's looking to do something in 5 years or 5 minutes, we're here for you. And we have that local touch. And I'm proud of my team. We actually won the 2021 Best Team at Marketplace Sotheby's this year. So really, really proud of that, because we only started in August, and to win the best team at the company is a big deal to me. So proud of my team, and shout out to everyone that's part of the team, and shout out to all of our clients. So thanks again for having us.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So now let's go over to Squabo. Squabo says, talk a little bit about your channel. So some people might be watching here. We are simulcasting not only on YouTube, on my YouTube, NorbCam YouTube channel, but also on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and on my NorbCam Facebook page. So we're kind of doing a triple stream here. So there might be some new people who may not be as familiar with you, Squabo. So talk a little bit about your channel. What do you talk about on yours? What would they expect to see if they go to your show?
Man, I'm like your little brother, Norb. I'm a little Seahawks fan down here. I give my opinions on the world of sports, on the Seahawks, on the NFL primarily. I'm a student at Washington State University. I work at the TV station over here. I'm a broadcast news major, and my goal is to be on TV talking sports on national basis. So that's my goal. That's what I'm doing. And I bring a lot of stats to the table. I bring a lot of unique opinions, hot takes, developed theories. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check it out on my channel. I also do some other things. I work at the TV station at Wazoo, and I act. And so I've been doing short films with my roommate in our free time. I do TikToks. And then I acted on a TV series for the TV station. So lots of different stuff. All the links can be found at my channel.
All right. And the links to his channel are in the description as well, if you want to click on that. We were hoping to get Steve Z.A. Smith on here. Unfortunately, something came up last minute, and I know he's not even at home. So, challenges to get him on the show, unfortunately. So hopefully next time we can get Steve Z.A. Smith on here. So for now, you have to run with these three musketeers right here. But, real quick, Squavo, I just have to say it's been remarkable watching the evolution of your career. I know you're still in school, but to me, I see already a career unfolding before our eyes. And, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago when you and I first met. You were at Green River. We ran into each other at French Field. You were commentating on one of the football games, so we saw each other there. And next, you're inviting me to come to your show, and appeared on your radio show for a little bit, and then I invited you to come on mine. And I don't know, it was me, 1.5 years later. Man, you've done so much, from not just football, but being on air, commentating on volleyball, Wazoo games, on the Pac-12 network. I mean, this has been amazing. So I expect at some point here, you are going to be a very familiar face on the sports broadcasting landscape. So I'm really happy and proud of everything that you've done, man. It's been fun to watch and be able to say, I knew him back when he was just this little dude over here. Actually, we never a little dude. You're always a big guy, but before all this happened. So really happy for you, man.
Norb, I got some catching up to do, man. How many times have you been on national TV now? Like how many? The commercial, man. The ESPN segment. Come on now. So look, I'm honored and flattered. Thank
you've got used to your. You've got lots of time.
Yeah, that's the thing, is because Squavo's got I'm on the latter side of the career, but you're just getting rocking and rolling. So keep it rolling, man. All right, so let's jump into this. Obviously, I don't know. I'm just trying to decide. Do we want to start with the big ones first, or work our way up to it? Because I really wanted to, the big one is people are always asking: is Russell Wilson going to be here? And we talked about this a little bit last week. Will Russell Wilson be here? Will Pete Carroll be here? The coaches, and then all these different players who we have question marks about: Rashad Penny, Bobby Wagner. These are guys who, on one side you can make an argument they should be here. On the other side, you look at the numbers and the dollar signs and go, man, I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know. You guys want to start with the big ones, or work our way up, start small and work our way up to the top, and finish with the Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson discussion? I feel like we should dangle that carrot.
End at the top. We should end with.
I think we should, because if we start at the beginning, people will have no reason to watch to the end of the video. So we'll save the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll side of things. Let's start. I really want to just kind of go through. We could bang through these quickly, but I want to go through almost position by position on the offense and the defense, and maybe not worry too much about special teams, but just kind of see where we feel like, okay, he should stay, or we need to get somebody else in there, and just go through it, and just, we can agree, disagree, commentate, but if it's a slam dunk, we move on to the next spot. Can we just do that?
Yep.
And I just want to keep this back and forth. You got something to, spit it out. We don't have to have any protocol here.
Let me start with special teams real quick. I think that we're going to keep our long snapper and keep Michael Dixon, and we're going to say bye-bye to our kicker. I think we need a new kicker. I think we haven't had stability there since Steven Hauschka, and it makes a big difference. I think we should have that be a strength, and it hasn't been a strength for a while. So I think we end up next season with a new kicker.
Wow. Geez, bold take already. You want to get rid of Jason Myers. Jason Myers, for those of you who don't remember, was perfect. 100% on field goals in 2020. This year, I don't have the stats in front of me. Maybe you have them, Squabo, but we weren't going to talk necessarily about the special teams.
$4 million for not being reliable. I'm sorry, but we need help in other areas. So if it can be either the same amount of money for someone a lot more reliable, or we go super duper cheap rookie, and it's about the same, then we might as well save $4 million, in my opinion.
Rick, kickers are tough, man. It's like, I don't think he's as bad as Blair Walsh ever was. But do we get rid of him after, one bad year? Does that define what he is moving forward? So you feel like, not too bad. It's what have you done for me lately? And forget about what he did the other year. Okay, correct. So you're done with him.
Yep.
All right, I'm not so quick to fire the gun. I guess I'm kind of into giving guys at least second chances on this. Squabo, what do you think? Do we keep Jason Myers? I think we all agree. Long snapper, Michael Dixon's the bomb. But what about Jason Myers? Stay or go next year?
Norb, you're such a kind individual. Second chances are great, but not at this position. This is a position where once those demons get in your head, it's really hard to get that confidence back. And what we've seen from Jason Myers, first year in Seattle, you brought up the stats, and I pulled them up after, so I didn't have them ready, but I do have them now. His first year in Seattle, he was 23 for 28, which was 82%. That's solid. His last year in New York, he was 91%. That's why we gave him the deal. His second year in Seattle, like you said, 24 for 24, 100%. And that includes a couple of 50 plus. His long was a 61 at the Rams. This year, remember last year he attempted 24 and made 24. This year he is 13 for 19. 68% field goal. That is the worst in his career.
I also need to point out that last year there was no crowd. So that makes a huge difference for a kicker. And now that the crowds are back, that's the real test. And that's gotten in DK Metcalf's head. That's gotten in Jason Myers' head. I think it's made a big difference for these players this year. In
a negative way. Interesting.
Yeah.
So 2-1, you guys think he needs to be gone. We need to get somebody else in there.
100%.
Just purely football wise, none of this is personal.
None of this is ever personal, but it's all business. Okay, all right. So we'll move on from special teams. Let's. You guys want to start on the defense or the offense?
Defense.
All right, let's start on the defense. Probably the lesser of the two evils that we've seemed to have problems with all season long. Not that they haven't had bad moments, but compared to the offense, I think the defense is definitely a little bit more of the issue. So let's start with. Let's start on the defensive line. I mean, I know there's a lot of depth players, but I think we want to focus at least on the crucial ones that we know are question marks. Do we want to bring this guy back or not? Let's start with the edge rushers. All right, here's some names we'll throw out there, and you guys can just kind of react to them. Let's start with Rasheem Green.
I think we're going to get priced out of Rasheem Green. I think that some middling team like the Jets or the Browns, they're going to overpay him, and we're not going to be able to match it. Remember when we drafted him, he was like 20 years old, and he's, peaking at a good time during a contract year. He's been playing really well. I'd like to have him back, but I don't think it's realistic. So I'm going to say he's not going to come back, even though I think we will make him an offer.
Guavo.
Yeah, we make him an offer. I agree with Dovinh that it's going to be really difficult. I think he's going to get more money elsewhere potentially. It'd be great if we can keep him in-house. I'd want to keep him in-house. 6.5 sacks this year is nothing to sneeze at, and there have been games when he has been our best pass rusher. If we can bring him back, we definitely should. I'm not going to pay more than 12, 13 for a guy like this. I can appreciate his impact, but for a pass rusher, I want double figures.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually think this is going to be the most reworked part of the team. I think that, him and Kerry Hyder, big question marks there. I think LJ Collier.
I was just gonna bring that up. Kerry Hyder.
No,
I barely remember saying his name this whole season.
Unfortunately, that was a dud. I think the good news is we didn't pay him that much, but at the same time, I don't think he's coming back. I don't think we're gonna bring him back.
Squabble, Kerry Hyder Jr., done deal, one and done.
See, he's one of those guys. He had such a big impact by being close to plays, but he wasn't the guy making the play. And that was a very disappointing thing this year. How many times did he pick up a fumble, or was he right there when a play happened? Like, he was the second guy to get to the quarterback, and he was a part of the celebration, but he wasn't the big difference maker. And right now we need difference makers. So I agree.
How many sacks did he even have? Did he even have more than 2? I don't
think more than 2.
0.5.
He didn't even have 1. He had half a sack. I think I remember that game. So I think he's gone. So I'm with you. Green, if we can get him, if we can keep the numbers low. Poona Ford.
Yes, I think Poona will come back. I think they like Poona's leadership. I think that we all expected him to make more splash plays this year, but he was also very close to getting an interception the other game. And I think Poona always has effort. I always see him like trailing the play, making the hustle play, and he hasn't had a great year, but I think he'll bounce back next year. I really do.
Squabble?
Man, Poona really did not have a great year. We were just laughing at how poorly Kerry Hyder did with 0.5 sacks. That's the same number that Poona had. Yeah. And
but at the same time, we're not expecting sacks out of Poona Ford. That's not his job. He's not an edge rusher, right? We don't judge him by his sack performance, do we?
But 0.5 is not as high as we would want that number either. Like last year, he had 2. And we were hoping that was going to be an upward trajectory. I would be okay with keeping him. He will play as good as our edge rushers play. If we get elite edge rushers that give Poona Ford one-on-one opportunities, he's going to have upwards of 3, 4, 5 sacks in a year. But if we can't do that, he's not. And that's why it really depends on how we build the rest of our defensive line.
Right. Okay. I'll also say run stopping was not the issue this year overall. It was mainly the pass rush. So I don't think Poona was the problem. I think that he didn't play as well as previous years that got him that nice contract. But I think there's other intangibles about him that I can't necessarily say about someone like Kerry Hyder.
Well, did Poona Ford, maybe that was, I don't know if you have the stats in front of him, but from a run stuffing standpoint, did Poona Ford, maybe he didn't deliver on the sack side of things, but maybe he was part of that defense that was able to slow the running attack down, especially near the end of the year.
I mean, he was credited with 8 run stuff, 7 stuff yards, 1 pass defense. I remember him making plenty of plays in the run game, and I agree with him making plays in the run game. He was making tackles. I think that we keep him in place and we fix the edge, and he will play better.
Yeah. All right. This is a guy I loved how he played all year, Al Woods. You guys agree that he's been one of the better players on this defensive line?
I think Al Woods has been one of the biggest surprises this year. I think the year off really did him well, and he does have that Red Bryant kind of energy. Got a fun, big, loving guy, but also plays his tail off. So I think we're absolutely gonna offer him another deal, and I think he's earned it. I think he's played really, really well, and it's been a nice breath of fresh air for us. So I'd say give him a 2-year deal.
Okay. Real quick before Squabble, your take. Corey Davis in the super chat says, is your Seahawks going to beat the Detroit Lions? What is your score prediction? I guess we will throw a score prediction out there at the end. I didn't really plan to talk too much about this game just because it's hard to really get much motivated about these two lousy teams playing each other. But we'll talk about it at the end, get a quick score prediction when we wrap up the show. So, Squabble, your thoughts on Al Woods? Same. You like the way he produced this year?
Well, he's coming off a career year. He's been in the league for 11 years, bouncing around to multiple different teams. He has had more sacks than he has this year, but only by 0.5, and he's never had as many tackles as he had this year, and that's where he really made his name. He was the disruptor. He was in the quarterback's face when the quarterback got rid of the football. He was making tackles for losses. 9 stuffs for him. He definitely deserves a spot on this roster. We need to keep him as an anchor on our interior defensive line.
Yeah, it seemed like anytime a great play was being made, Al Wood's name was being mentioned in that. So yeah, I agree there. All right, so here's one of the big ones that is center of controversy. Carlos Dunlap. Last year when we brought him in from the Bengals, it seemed like he was the reason our defense turned around midway or so through the season. This year, he was invisible, and snaps reduced through pretty much the first 2/3 of the year, but then. In the stretch here, he's suddenly got 3-sack game and he's doing all this stuff, but at a point of the season where it didn't really matter anymore. It's like he started to produce when it was too late. So, Carlos Dunlap.
I'm going to call out our coaching staff on this one because there's been several. They tried a new defense this year where at some point, some of the pass rushers, the traditional pass rushers, would drop off into coverage. So there were times where I saw Poona Ford in coverage. There are times where I saw Carlos Dunlap drop back into coverage. There are times where I saw Daryl Taylor drop back into coverage. Alton Robinson, these guys, Rasheem Green, should not be playing in coverage ever. Maybe Daryl Taylor because he's athletic enough and he's young, but the rest of these guys, they should be specializing. And I think that Carlos Dunlap is a rhythm player. I think by the time, the 2/3 of the year went around, he's in great shape now. He's a veteran. He knows how to take care of his body. And I think he settled into his role, but they also played him more. And I think if you pay a guy that much money and he's a veteran, I think that we should put him on the field more. I don't blame him for the type of play that he's had, at least in the second half. I think he showed that he should be back. But the first half I agree with you. He was definitely invisible, but I think that the whole defense was invisible the first half of the year. So I don't really know what happened there. But I will say I'd like to see Carlos Dunlap back because I don't think we're a better team without him. Interesting. But if you remove Kerry Hyder, for example, do I think we're a worse team without Kerry Hyder? Not necessarily. But without Carlos Dunlap, yes, I think the talent level goes down. The chances of winning does go down if you remove Carlos Dunlap.
What is amazing about Carlos Dunlap, too, is that he had some of the most productive games near the end here and had on a very limited number of snap opportunities. So why were they taking so many of his snaps away? Was it because they felt his productivity wasn't as good, so they took him away, and that's why he wasn't doing it? Or was he not performing, and that's why they took the snaps away? But whatever it is, he started stepping up at the end. So, Squabble, what's your take? Is this fool's gold to buy into what we've seen late in the season and go, oh, yeah, see how good he is? This is the guy he is. We got to bring him back. Or would this be a waste of resources to bring him back on this defensive line?
See, there's no question in my mind that he's at least deserved another chance. And what it comes down to is, first of all, football is a momentum sport, right? And while, yes, we should have came into this year with another running back on our roster so that we didn't go through the woes of Chris Carson injury again, Rashad Penny injury again, Alex Collins was playing like a guy that's bounced around the NFL. And DJ Dallas, he's no elite top tier rusher in the NFL. So we head into this year and we needed another running back. We didn't have Rashad Penny when it mattered the most. But does that mean we should get rid of Rashad Penny this offseason? I don't think so. Why? Because football is a momentum sport. And if the last time we saw them on the field, they were legit. Heading into next year, well, yes, our season is over this year. Rashad Penny got his swagger back. Rashad Penny is ready to ball out next year, and I cannot wait to see what he puts forward next year. It's the same deal with Carlos Dunlap. Through the first, 9, 10, 12 weeks, he didn't start picking up his sacks. He had one versus San Francisco. That was his first full sack of the year. That was on December 5th. So he didn't have an entire sack to himself until December 5th. But since then, in the most important game of our season, the game where we all said it's all on the line right here at the Los Angeles Rams, all the marbles in the bucket, 3 sacks in that game for Carlos Dunlap. Well, yes, we lost the game, Dunlap had nothing to do with that. And he was the reason we had a legitimate chance to win that game. And we might have won it had the NFL not had their tampering fingers all over it. But Carlos Dunlap in that game showed why we need to keep him. 2 sacks in the Chicago game. Momentum is a real thing. He's been splitting snaps with Rasheem Green, and Rasheem Green has been performing. 6.5 sacks for both of those players. I say we bring them both back.
I'm with you. Yep.
I do blame the coaching staff. I think they tried to keep everyone fresh by rotating a lot, which is a good idea in theory, but it prevented a lot of rhythm from happening for players like Carlos Dunlap. And I'll also say this, the best players in the world, the Pro Bowl players, the guys that get 10 sacks plus a year, they're playing, 2, 3, 4 downs. They're not just a 1 or 2 down player. And I think that, logistically, it's a real mess. To imagine Aaron Donald coming in and out of the game like every 2 snaps. You think he'd be as effective? Would it keep him fresher? No, not at all. It's just weird to think about that we tried that this year and it just honestly didn't work. And I'm glad that we kind of figured it out, and changed it because the rotation was not working for the first half of the year.
Yeah, and that's a question. We will talk about coaches as well as far as the whether they should stay or go. Let's keep it going because we got a lot of players to get through here. So how about Brian Monet?
Brian Monet is a hard one for me because I think he's a solid backup player, but I don't see him as a Super Bowl winning starter, but I think he's a good backup. So
we need depth. We have to have depth. So obviously, we've got to have these second level guys as well. I think as a second level player,
he's young. He grew up in our system, so yes, I would say keep him as backup.
Squabo?
We have to keep him. And the reason we have to keep him is because he's trending up in every single category. He played more games this year. He hit the most tackles he's had in any season. Before this year, the most he's had was 9. This year, he had 31. In terms of sacks, he tripled that as well. He had 0.5 last year. This year is 1.5. So it might not be as pretty of a triple, but he's playing better. He had that forced fumble. I can't remember who it was, but wasn't that the one where he just punched it from behind and knocked it out? He is having a good year, 3.5 stuffs for himself. Him and Al Woods is our 1-2. I love that combo.
Yeah, with you. I get happy feelings when I think Al Woods, Brian Monet. Those are guys who's like, oh yeah. These guys are good. All right, here's a name I've never.
Sorry, I just want to say that the defensive stats are a little skewed because they've played so many more plays than your average defense this year that they do have a lot more tackles. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We have a very large sample size since they were on the field so long. All right, and this is the guy whose name I never learned how to pronounce. Robert Nicodemici. I don't even know how to say. How do you say his name?
So I don't know if you saw this. Was it last game where he almost got a penalty and Bobby Wagner had to chill him out because he made a tackle for loss and I think it was on a first down play. And then he started talking smack in the other guy's face. Long story short, no. for me. I think that this is an opportunity to get younger, get smarter, and I think he's a good high energy player, but I don't know. Pete Carroll typically likes guys that are more flexible. He's not play special teams is what I'm getting at. If you're third stringer on defense, you need to be playing special teams. I think he does play a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe he does play some special teams, but I don't view him as, an essential piece moving forward. I think we can get younger.
I was disappointed with his output. I didn't think that he had the year that we wanted him to have. And while that can be said about quite a few of the people on our defensive front, he was just a guy that, he is a pretty significant name. He is a guy that I wanted to see him make more plays, and he didn't, and he was kind of irrelevant to our season. So I'm okay with this moving off of him.
A depth guy for me, but again, if we're not paying him too much, I'm okay with that. All right, here's one I'm very excited about. I think one of the better players. You mentioned Al Woods being one of the standouts, but I think Daryl Taylor finally had his coming out party this year. We waited for it so long after he got drafted, and he never recovered from that leg injury that we hoped he would recover from. And once he hit the field, it's like, man, they really saw something in him. He's been fun to watch this year. Agreed?
Absolutely. I think not only is he a lock to come back, I think that he's a lock to be a huge part of our future. I think he's one of those blue chip prospects that we keep. I think that we hopefully learn from the Frank Clark thing and we actually keep him. He's the closest thing to Frank Clark that I've seen since Frank Clark, as far as twitch, as far as power. Also, I like hearing what I hear in his interviews. He talks about how he do a lot more hand fighting this year, and he's learned a lot from people like Cliff Averill on how to do that. Because obviously in college, there's times where you can overpower someone, but in the NFL, he's most likely not going to just randomly overpower a left tackle or right tackle or whatnot. And so he's learning how to use more than power. And it's really exciting to see because he's got that bend, he's got that energy, he's got the twitch, he's got the power, he's got the youth. And so I'm really excited for his future. I think he's been a real stud this year and a really great bright spot.
Swabo?
Pay the man. When the time comes, pay the man.
Yeah, when it comes.
Well,
not a year or two.
Not only does he have 6 sacks on the year, not only has he showed up, not only has he been our best pass rusher at times, and when we didn't have a pass rush, when we needed a pass rush the most, he was our best pass rusher. He was the guy that we had going, and he was the only guy getting to the quarterback at that time. And for a long time, part of our season, that was the problem. And towards the latter half of the season, he hasn't had as much of an impact, at least getting to the quarterback. People wonder why that is. Did he fall off? No, he didn't fall off. That's why everyone else is playing better now. It's because the defense has rolled their coverage to Daryl Taylor, and it's credit to him. Not only, I think what he did that's even more important than getting to the quarterback, and this is almost crazy to say, he is our new enforcer. How many times has he just delivered a hit stick on defense, knocking people to the ground and flexing over them like, yeah, look what I just did to you. He is not afraid to hit. And I'm not just talking about like tackling. I'm talking about the hit to where you don't have to wrap up and they're going to the ground. He did that a couple times this year. He brings the swagger to this defense. Him and Jordan Brooks are the core of this new linebacking are this new linebacking core and are essential for the energy of our defense. I would pay him as well.
This is, as much heat that Pete Carroll and John Schneider get for some of their bad draft moves, you got to give him credit for this one. This was one that they got right. So yeah, love his play this year. All right, so okay, I guess we got a couple more guys. Alton Robinson.
I think we're definitely going to bring him back. I think that he's still under his rookie deal. He's also working with Cliff Averill, and I feel like he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit this year in the rotation. And again, hard for him to get in a rhythm when he's behind all these guys. Him and LJ Collier were kind of at the back of the rotation, kind of just hanging out for a lot of the year. And I think he had his moments, but I definitely think we bring him back. I think there's no reason not to at this point. He's not dead weight, and he's not taking up a spot on the roster that we can give to someone younger and smarter and better and faster. So I think he's fine.
Alton Robinson, what year is he? Is this his?
I feel like this might have been his second year.
Year 2, second year. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we still got some miles left to see what goes out of there. Yeah, it wasn't a standout for me, but he wasn't a negative or liability either. So I still think there's upside left to him. Squabble?
He is a confusing, very confusing, because here's the thing. He had the same amount of tackles as last year, same amount of forced fumbles, played one more game. He just had fewer sacks. So if you're making the argument that it's because we paid all these guys to come in and bring us sacks this year, I don't know how you make that. I feel like Alton Robinson moved inside more this year, and they had him playing inside. That, in a combination with the fact that our defense was always on the field, our pass rushers were exhausted. That's probably why we struggled to get to the quarterback so much at times. And so he doesn't cost us anything. Let's keep him, but he was disappointing this year. And he's a guy that showed us in his rookie year 4 sacks, an ability to get to the quarterback. We need to see that appear once again this next year.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit of a plateauing. And
well,
not to step up.
If you don't have Kerry Hyder, right, and you don't have Benson Mayowa, and maybe you don't have Rasheem Green, and you don't have LJ Collier, Alton Robinson's going to have a lot more opportunities. And so that's what I'm banking on. I think it was lack of opportunities, honestly. I don't remember seeing him on the field very much. Maybe we can pull up the snap counts for him this year, but I don't remember Alton Robinson getting very many opportunities.
Well, I think either way, he's got at least one more year to prove what he's got. So here's one that's a little bit more confusing, or not as confusing. LJ Collier. Were you finished with him yet? He's been absent so many times, and I don't know if he's more than any other player been healthy scratched so many times. But boy, this is one of those ones where we kind of go, see, this is the problem. We don't know how to draft guys. Thoughts on? It looks like we lost Daniel for a moment. So Squabo, your take on LJ Collier?
This is going to be one of the first moves that the new head coach makes when Pete is gone this offseason. This is going to be, he is here because Pete drafted him early. That is why he's here. He hasn't showed it at practice. He hasn't showed it in games. He is here because Pete drafted him so early. He's got to go.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
That was a tough draft pick when it happened. I remember all the analysts were saying, I had him graded as like a 3rd rounder or 4th rounder. And then just looking at the tape, I was like, I don't see the violence that typically, a high drafted interior lineman has at that level. We've been looking for that guy since Michael Bennett left. Malik McDowell was supposed to be that guy. Who did the 49ers draft? They drafted an inside lineman.
Javon Kinlaw?
Yeah, Kinlaw. They thought he was going to be, like a god as well. But it's not easy to find those guys, It's not every day you get a number 13 pick, Aaron Donald from Pittsburgh. It's very rare. But again, we've been looking for a long time for that guy who's that hybrid. Kerry Hyder looks like that. Not quite. LJ Collier looks like that. Can't quite play like that. Alton Robinson looks like that. Can't quite do it. Rasheem Green, not yet either. It's really rare that you can find those hybrid guys, and we're going to keep looking, but I think the ship has sailed on Mr. Collier. So sorry, but bye-bye.
Yeah. All right, so moving now to the linebacker position. You kind of mentioned, so Benson Mayowa, he's kind of outside linebacker, but sometimes was on the line pass rushing. Again, I don't know, one of these guys where I don't know if we really had super high hopes when we brought him in, but he certainly didn't have when this year started and when we started saying we're gonna have Carlos Dunlap, Rasheem Green, Kerry Hyder Jr., Benson Mayowa, Daryl Taylor, Alton Robinson. I think we all got pretty excited that we might have one of the best pass rushing groups in the entire NFL. We're far from that. Benson Mayowa, what happens with him?
I'm gonna have to say.
Go ahead, Daniel. Go for it.
Oh, okay. I was going to say...
Squabble, you're in the middle. Go, Squabble. You go.
Well, I have a lag. I'm so sorry.
We Benson Mayowa, I want to get rid of him. I love that he's a Seattle guy, and I love that we're the ones that brought him on. The 3 years before last year, he had a combined 17 sacks. This year, he had 1. So I almost want to push the blame on Seattle, but I feel like getting him out of here will help fix the problem of an overcrowded pass rush department.
Yeah, it's weird that all these guys as a whole underperformed. You just have to wonder, is it the players or is it the system? But at some point, they got to win their one-on-one, right? Pass rushers just have to get to the quarterback. They got to get around that offensive tackle and get to the quarterback, and it just didn't happen enough. Daniel?
I think Benson had a tough year this year. He had a pretty bad injury mid-season, And it's not like he's getting any younger. I think he's been a great, solid NFL player throughout his career. Again, it's not personal, but to take a step forward on this team, I think we have an opportunity to get younger at this position. And someone that replaces Benson can also play more on special teams, right? So when a Utah boy drafted in third round linebacker, can't remember his name right now. Who's backing up KJ Wright before? Cody Barton, right? When Cody Barton was healthy, he was playing special teams a lot. Benson Mayowa is not at that age or the speed where he can play special teams. And so that's the formula Pete has, and it's worked for a long time. And it's hard now if a player's one-dimensional. I don't think it's going to work out. So I also think, we paid him a pretty good amount of money this year. I think it was like $4.5 million. And so him and Jason Myers right there, that's $9 million. You could throw towards a really, really solid number three wide receiver. You could throw that towards a really solid offensive lineman, maybe a center, so there's opportunities here to get better financially and also with the energy of the team. So for me, it's a pass on keeping him, although I appreciate his play over the many, many years. I really do.
I have kind of a stilted view when it comes to Benson Mayowa, because when I first started playing Madden big time, into it last year, I had Benson Mayowa I was sacking the quarterback. He was like my leading sacker. He had like high double digit sacks. So in my mind, my memory of Benson Mayowa is skewed by my Madden performance. And then I see the real one. It's like, oh, that's right. He sucks in real life, but he was awesome in Madden. So there's that part I have to like rule out, leave the Madden part of it out of the equation. So yeah, it might be time for, unfortunately, another goodbye from Benson Mayowa, who he was the one who was with our Super Bowl team, right? His first year out, he was on the Seahawks in 2013 for a small stint before he went and did well in other places. All right, so moving on to the
Super Bowl and Benson Mayowa. How painful was it to see Bruce Irvin get that play at the end of the Bears game and then talk smack like Pete Carroll predicted he would? And of course, we lose by 1. That was the worst.
It was
not just that, and then to see Jimmy Graham get the touchdown pass in the end zone. It's like old demons, just of all the guys to take us down. It's horrible. That is our former players. All right, so now speaking of potential future former players, let's go to the linebacker side, and just to speed things up, I won't go to all the depths of it, but let's talk about the ones that really matter. Jordan Brooks. I mean, I know he's not going anywhere, but I want to see how happy, disappointed are you with the way he's performed. Squabo, Jordan Brooks. Much debate about whether this was a good draft pick. You've seen him for almost the full season now. Your take?
Good draft pick. Bobby Wagner led the NFL in tackles this year. Daniel Dovinh brought up a good point. So they're skewed because we're on the field for so much. We're last in time of possession, and that's a real thing. But Jordan Brooks is third in the NFL in tackles this year. And
right behind Bobby, yeah.
That is reason enough right there. Brooks needs to stay, obviously, and he will.
Daniel.
Yeah, I feel very similarly to him as I do about the other stalwart on our defense, Daryl Taylor. I think that they are part of the nucleus moving forward. And I really thought about the nucleus thing over the last several years in watching the Mariners rebuild, right? Who are they going to keep? Oh, Kyle Seager retires. Who's going to be that next guy, right? They get younger. They get more exciting. Okay, we got Jared Kelenic. We got, Mitch Haniger, blah, 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 right? Correct. Same thing with the Seahawks here. We're trying to find those blue chip guys. Who's going to build the next championship, right? And we did go through a rebuild. We just didn't know we were going through a rebuild recently. We just happened to organically be, losing. And what's exciting now is Jordan Brooks. He's shown that he can now make adjustments in pass coverage and get more depth against players like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, like after getting shredded the first time, right? Making those adjustments has been huge. And not only that, he's now able to recognize and diagnose screenplays better. He took on like 4 guys by himself the other game. Right. And he's a sure tackler. I think the next step for him is making those gap plays, those game altering plays, right? Getting interceptions, getting more TFLs, getting more fumbles, getting more fumble recoveries, right? More of those type of plays. That's his his ceiling is so high. If you just look at him, you can see he's one of the most explosive athletic players on the field, whether on offense or defense. He is going to be a stalwart for a long time. The question is, are we going to bring back Bobby?
All right, well, hold on a second. We're
run
getting
it
into
back?
that.
Or is he the middle linebacker of the future? We all know the tough answer here, but yeah, I think he's obviously going to come back and he's going to run it back and have a great year. I think he'll be a Pro Bowler next year. I'm going to throw that out there.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, I got to add to it that, at first I was still kind of skeptical in the beginning part of the year when our defense was sucking. It was the worst in the league. But as I saw him develop, I started seeing just little things come out of this. Pass coverage was getting better. But really, what really jumped out is how he was able to read the screens and take down the screens. So there's a point where we could stop the screen to save our life. And then he started doing it. He started making the plays. He started sniffing it out, and I started feeling like I was getting KJ Wright vibes coming back, who was one of the best at sniffing out the screen. So definitely, again, kudos to John and Pete for seeing that one. Now, was he a top, at the level we got him at, or could we have got him for less? That could be debated, but I think it's showing that it was a good move overall. So now we've got to bring up what you just mentioned. Also bring it up, and Cameron Hughes mentioned this as well. It's a good transitional period. He says, wasn't good value drafting a run-stuffing linebacker on the first round, but is developing nicely. Now, what you just brought up. Moving on from Bobby is a must at a $20 million cap hit. Then you can move Brooks to his natural position. You just said that point right there. So the $20 million question, guys, do you keep the Pro Bowl lead, tackle leading, record-setting middle linebacker who is our only guy besides Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, part of that Super Bowl team? What happens with Bobby Wagner next year? Squabble, we'll start with you.
I think the best thing we could do is keep him for one more year. And the reason that I say that is because the best thing that we can do is also to get rid of Pete Carroll. And so if we're getting rid of Pete Carroll, we're bringing in a new head coach. We want to have at least one guy that can speak to the culture of the locker room, what it was back in the day, can help, that's been here and already is connected to the young guys, but can also connect to the veterans and speak to them also. I understand he is an extremely expensive cap hit. I understand he only had 1 sack this year and only 1 interception this year. But what if we weren't on the field so dang much? What if he didn't have to lead the NFL in tackles? And what if he wasn't exhausted consistently staying on the field and trying to carry and lead this defense and look to the sideline, get the call, and then make sure guys are in position and get all 11 guys in the right position while also worrying about himself and those ridiculous players that he has to try and tackle? So I think that he didn't have the best year of his career this year. He didn't live up to the $20 million this year. But for this organization moving forward, I think one more year with him to segue with a new head coach, preferably an offensive-minded head coach that brings in a defensive coordinator that can connect with a guy like Bobby Wagner, I think that's the way to go. Keep him one more year.
So just so I'm clear on this, that $20 million cap, so if we keep him for next year, that is $20 million against the cap. Correct? And if they move him before next year, that would take $20 million off the books. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's probably not the full $20 million off the books, but it'd definitely help. I'm not a cap guru, but I would imagine at least half of it would be available.
Now, is that based on if we trade, somebody else would pick up that, or do we just let him go and it would just be like he becomes a free agent and we would just lose a lot of that cap hit on the salary?
Well,
I don't really know how the cap numbers and stuff work.
Do you remember last year we were talking about trading Russell, and had we traded him last year, it would have been like a $30 million cap hit. But if we trade him this offseason before like June or something, there's all these timelines, right? Then it's only 16 or something. Like, I think it's going to be one of those cases as well. But my take on it is, regardless of if we have a new head coach, or we have the same head coach, or we decide to run it back, whatever, I think he's staying regardless. I think on the field, he has shown that he still has improvements to make, and he's still an excellent linebacker. We could argue all day about whether or not we think a middle linebacker has value in today's NFL, but that's a whole nother discussion. I think for this team, he's not going anywhere for one more year. I can't imagine a scenario where we do the same thing that we did with KJ Wright and kind of play all these games and like we ask Bobby to take a pay cut or something. It's either Bobby's going to get carted off the field because he gave it his all, or he plays out his whole contract and we leave on good terms. But I just can't see a scenario where we blow it up early and we disrespect him. And I think we're going to have Bobby back next year. I just can't see it. I can see a lot of stuff happening, but even in a rebuild, I think you, like Squabo said, you still want that voice of reason, that calm presence, that veteran leadership. And it's not like he's a scrub. He's awesome. I think he really benefited from Al Woods having a great year this year and Jordan Brooks stepping up. I think that all kind of melded together, those three players all together. I think they were some of the best of our defense, that we had to offer. So I'm of the bring Bobby back camp for sure.
Cameron Hughes clarified. He said like $16.5 million will be taken over by another team if we do a trade, and we'd pay $3.5 million in dead cap. But yes, that's $20 million of cap allocations you can use elsewhere. As I said earlier, I'm kind of a second chance guy, and to me, the fact that Bobby Wagner led the team in tackles, broke his own record, and the fact that he was durable enough to survive this entire season, knock on wood with 2 games to go, that he's never actually missed any time. I don't believe he was ever out for any games, right? In this game, he played all that time at middle linebacker, taking all those hits, and you never once heard him complain. You never heard any issues from him. The guy just kept doing his job. Yeah, sometimes he looked a step slow. Yeah, sometimes he was diving at guys and missing, and that maybe he didn't miss those tackles a couple, 3-4 years ago or more. But I think there's also something to be said, like you said, from the leadership standpoint. Who are our leaders on this team? I don't think we have a lot of them at this point. We have some loud talkers, but who are the actual leaders? Bobby Wagner's a quiet leader. He's always been that way. And I think he's got a value in there that's more than just the number of tackles he makes and the position that he's at. And I'm not ready to see Jordan Brooks he's been better, but I'm not ready to hand the torch over to him at middle linebacker and take Bobby out. So to me, I'm with you guys. I think he should stay another year, and then we'll see what happens after that. Alina Dahl in the Super Chat says, what do y'all think of Money Lynch interested in buying a part of the Hawks and Bam Bam wanting to talk to Jody? Alina's all up on the social media buzz that's been out there. Yeah, I didn't read much into that whole Marshawn Lynch wanting to buy a piece of the Seahawks. How does that work? Because at this point, I know that Jody Allen owns the entire Seahawks as the sole owner. I don't know how Marshawn Lynch buys a piece of them. It's not like the Sounders where they got this sort of multiple owners owning pieces of it. So I don't know much more. Do you guys know more about that story? I other than reading a headline, I really didn't know much more about the details.
Generally on this, that Marshawn Lynch is one of the best businessmen in the NFL. I'm pretty well connected in the restaurant industry in Seattle, and he is invested in a lot of great restaurants and clubs and entertainment. And Marshawn is super smart. He's always taking care of his chicken, as he says. He's inspired a lot of kids. He has his management company, and he signed, players like Najee Harris. Marshawn, I have so much respect for him, and he invests a lot back into his communities, whether it's in Oakland and Seattle. So just very impressed with him and all the stuff he's done. I will say this, as far as buying minority shares of companies, companies like the Seahawks, organizations like the Seahawks, there's always available shares out there. You just need to know who to talk to. You know what I mean? It's not something you put on Craigslist and say, hey, so my family legacy, we have 0.5% of the Seahawks ownership. Anyone want to buy it? Right? It's something where it there's a conversation, and it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And then those conversations happen, and hey, these shares are available. My family's not really interested in keeping them anymore, whatever. So I'm not surprised. I think it'd be fantastic for him to own even 1% of the Seahawks or 0.5%. I like the analogy. It's better to own like 1% of something humongous than like 100% of something tiny, right? So I'm a big fan of that idea. And then as far as Cam, I think people have made a big deal of it. It was one tweet. I don't know if that's really going to get him that meeting with Jody. And people are like saying, oh, does that mean he wants to be head coach? Does that mean Cam wants to be head coach? Or does it mean that he wants to fire Pete? Or does it mean that he loves Pete? Or does it mean that he hates Russell or loves I'm like, guys, I mean, everybody wants to talk to Jody right now. So I don't put a lot of stock into that tweet.
Well, here's the thing, because when Pete Carroll has the title of head coach and vice president of football or executive of football operations, right? He has this huge, overwhelming title. He has a huge amount of power. So when he's overseeing the entire team and we're having the worst year in Russell Wilson's career, and then we're seeing guys like Marshawn Lynch and Cam Chancellor wanting to go speak to the owner about changes in the organization, that sounds like there's a disconnect. That sounds like there's a disconnect between what some of the players are feeling and what the owner is hearing. Why? Because there's one middleman in between everything that just controls what everything is being said in the middle, and that's Pete Carroll. So what I think Beast Mode and what I support about what Beast Mode and Cam Chancellor want to do, I don't think either of them should be the head coach. I don't think either of them should, be the individual to take over, but I think their philosophies are what are going to be important. Cam Chancellor, right, comes into the NFL, one of the hardest hitters, the enforcer, sets the tone, not afraid of anyone, quiet but deadly. You fear him without him saying a word. That almost sounds like I'm describing Beast Mode, does it not? That description counts for either one of those, because they walk on the field and you feel their mystique. You respect them without ever speaking to them. They don't have to say a word. But more than anything, the reason Pete Carroll lost the locker room is because he started struggling in the areas he built his name on. Drafting, especially early, or just even throughout the draft. Drafting early on in Pete's career was one of his strengths. And then throughout the entire time we were on those Super Bowl runs, it was running the football. Our Super Bowl runs poetically ended by him not running the football. And now those same guys are going to the owner talking about this dude he's almost too Pete. How could Pete Carroll be so old and so modern and able to work with all these young cats and all that stuff? Sometimes he switches sides too many times, like a pancake, right? And because of that, these guys like Cam Chancellor and Beast Mode, who were one thing their entire career, stuck with it. That's what football can be about sometimes, is we're gonna do what we're gonna do, and if you stop it, you stop it, but we're gonna do it. The problem was there have been times when we didn't do what we should have been doing, and that's what these people, in my opinion, are probably speaking about.
I couldn't agree more. That was perfectly well said. That was
very well said.
I've read all of Pete Carroll's books. I've read his entire coaching philosophy. It's all about the circle of toughness that has hard-hitting defense and running the ball and knowing who you are. And it was a microcosm in that second Super Bowl, obviously, where we lost our identity at the most crucial moment, and we never got it back, unfortunately. If you look back, us hiring Brian Schottenheimer was an ode to running the ball. He had a running the ball history, actually, his dad's history, his history, Pete Carroll. And then for some reason, we went all let Russ cook, right? We got DK Metcalf, we got Tyler Lockett, and Chris Carson is great, but he's no beast mode. And then our defense started, we weren't hitting very hard for a while. And so we picked up Jamal Adams. We're trying. And I just need to remind everyone that winning cures all. It's ultimately one really terrible, bad season, and it puts a terrible taste in people's mouth. And you might be saying, well, it's actually been multiple seasons. And with that, I can't argue. It has been multiple seasons of pain, and it starts with the draft. It's been a very poor set of drafts for, probably since, our Super Bowl runs. They haven't been consistent all the way through, and it's really hard to do so. But I think that's where it starts and ends. And right now we're at a crossroads as a fan base, right? Do we blow it up, or do we run it back again and remind ourselves we were 12-4 last year and we won the division? Or is it like, hey, that was maybe an aberration and this year's what's really real? So that's the question. Like which team is the actual Seahawks right now?
And I feel like we're circling on that point where Russell Wilson, who's got to go, who's got to stay, which we're still going to put that at the end. We still got some more players to get through here, so I'm going to keep us back on course on that. I do have a quote from Russell Wilson's press conference that is interesting. I'll use that to set up our discussion when it comes to it. But let's finish our talk on the defense, because now we're going into the discussion about cornerbacks. And as a whole, I want to just say that I think the cornerback side, because of injury, we were forced to push a lot of our depth up to see guys that we probably wouldn't necessarily have seen had we not lost our rookie, quarterback Trey Brown. If DJ Reed doesn't go out with injury and COVID, we've had to see a lot of guys come up here. But let's talk. Let's start with let's go with the corners. So I'm going to list all of them because there's so many of them, but let's go with the ones that are important. Sidney Jones. What do you guys like or don't like about Sidney Jones' play? Who's, again, one of those guys forced into action due to injury. How's he done this year?
I like the fact that when corners get injured, he's there to step up. And that's the role that I want him to stay as. He's not a starter. He's not a guy that I want to see out there in the most important games. But he is a guy. It's important the fact that he played 15 games this year. It's important that he had 60 tackles, and it's important that he had 8 passes defensed, right? Those aren't numbers to sneeze at. And this is a guy that he's obviously not the best. He's obviously not the most skilled, the creme de la creme. But in a department that's had injuries, with Trey Brown going on IR, missing the majority of the year, in a department that's been, injury riddled for years, Jeremy Lane getting injured back in the day. And, we've had so many injury problems in that department. I want a guy that can be there through it all. And Sidney Jones was there. I want him as our 3rd or 4th corner.
Daniel.
Yeah, I think we should bring him back as a backup. I think he's a solid player. I like that he's a local guy. I thought he played pretty decent. Honestly, I think most of the fan base would agree with me. Anything after Trey Flowers looks really, really good. So I'm a little bit jaded about this position. I think we were spoiled for a long time with Richard Sherman in his prime, Byron Maxwell in his prime, Brandon Browner in his prime, these guys, and then it's been pretty tough sledding. So I would say, yes, I'd like to bring him back. I think he's got good ball skills. I think it was ultimately his first year with the team. I still think there's upside there. And again, I like that he's a local guy. And I don't see any downside of bringing him back.
Cameron Hughes says, Sidney Jones is a very good second line guy. It doesn't seem like we're going to be able to keep him, though. Some team is going to see his performance and give him like $5 million. I guess we'll see. I mean, we can't control what other teams might lure players away. All we can do is, at least on this little forum we have here, is decide whether we want to keep them or not. And I agree. And whatever his interception number is, I don't think it was that high. How many picks did he have?
0.
Do you have any? 0?
Well, he should have had one. Like 2.
He should have had one that would have won that. What game was it that he had the interception that didn't count? Was it the Saints?
I don't know.
What game was it that? Remember the one that he dove? We thought he had it and would have taken it. Set up the Seahawks and they overruled it. And I had no idea that was going to be the case. I can't remember what game it was. It was at home, but we lost. I think we lost that game. Anyway, all right, moving on. Let's see, Sidney Jones. So then we got DJ Reed. It's kind of his first year at the starting position. He kind of moved into it last year, and I really liked what he did. And I was happy to see that he earned that starting spot. And then riddled with injuries and COVID and whatnot. But what do you guys think of DJ Reed? Has he earned staying in the starting position? At one point, we were set with him and Trey Brown. Felt like, okay, there's our corners. And then, boom, they both disappeared out of that position. What do you guys think? Bring him back? Does he stay at the starting spot?
Oh, man, he can't be our number 1 cornerback. That is for sure. We need a better number 1 cornerback, and we need somebody that does. And this is another, man, I need to add this to my soliloquy about why Pete Carroll needs to go, because this is another example of a way that Pete Carroll has gone away from his identity. When he first came into Seattle, it was 6'2", 6'3" corners, lengthy, big physical guys. Now it's DJ Reed and Trey Brown, 2 guys that, if they stood next to me, I would see clear over their head. And that is a problem. I am 6 feet and 2 inches tall. Look, these are 2 gentlemen. They're extremely athletic. They're extremely physical. They play extremely hard. I want to see them both stay on the roster. One could bounce into the slot. DJ Reed could stay on the right side, but we need a new cornerback one, just to shut down Island, can travel, can go play against a big body receiver. We need to go back to our identity in that sense and get a big body defensive back.
Is it possible they got burned because they wanted Trey Flowers so badly to be Richard Sherman, and when that just ultimately blew up and it blew up in their faces, that maybe they just had to realize that they can't, just because the guy's 6'2", 6'3", and looks like Richard Sherman doesn't mean they're going to get Richard Sherman. Maybe he's out there. Maybe there's out there, but it's hard to find these guys, right? Number one corners don't grow on trees, and if they are available, they come at a high expense, almost as high as expense as finding a good left tackle, which we're going to get to in a little bit. So, all right, so you want him on, you just don't think he should be our number one. Daniel?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should bring him back. I really like his attitude, his scrappiness, and I don't think he's going to command huge money on the open market. So I think for that reason, I'd love to see him back as our second or third string cornerback. And I agree. I think we need to upgrade that position, but I don't think we're necessarily a better team by getting rid of DJ Reed. I think he's been pretty solid. And again, I like his attitude.
Let me throw a curveball to you or the people in the chat. Did we miss on somebody because of bad drafting, a number one corner that was available that we didn't get? I know we didn't get Budda Baker, but he's technically he's the safety, right? He's not a corner. So did we ever miss on a guy who would have been a number one?
We missed on Kevin King, who ultimately is pretty bad.
Yeah, because I wanted Kevin King at that same draft when we were also looking at Budda Baker. But then, yeah, you're right. He just turned out to not be, I think, what we all hoped he would be. Is there any? Did we miss on any corners? It's tough because we're always drafting so late. Yeah, you're not finding number one corners usually at that point.
15. All the best cornerbacks, the guys like Jalen Ramsey, those types of guys, those are always like top 10, top 15 draft picks. So we're gonna need to trade Russell for that.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of research here.
Or break the bank and try to get somebody floating around out there. Okay, so moving along. So we talked about Diddy Jones, DJ Reed. Let's see. I don't even know if we need to get into Bless Austin or John Reed. These are lower tier guys. I don't think, unless you guys want to get to them, I feel like I don't even need to talk to them. They're lower scale guys forced into action because of depth issues. Let's go to safety then. Ryan Neal came in last year, was sort of like, came in, first action, got a pick. And then we didn't see as much, and I thought we were going to see a lot more of him at the start of the year, especially when the offense was struggling. Hasn't been quite the impact player, I don't think, as he was last year. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Squabo, Ryan Neal?
Looking at the game against the Rams that decided our season, on the play where Cooper Kupp had the little hitch route touchdown, and I believe, was that the go-ahead? I think that was the go-ahead touchdown, right?
Is that the one after that BS call that extended that drive? Yeah, that one. Should never have happened. But yes, I believe Ryan Neal was on coverage on that one.
No. We might be talking about different plays. I can't remember which touchdown was to go ahead. I remember Cooper Kupp had 2 touchdowns in that game. But the one where Cooper Kupp had the little hitch route, and he was between Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner on that play, right?
Oh, that's when they were going left to right. And he just sort of did a little juke, and then, yeah.
And he was right between the two linebackers. First of all, our coverage should have been slid over more, because one of the most important things that I'm always talking about, and somebody commented on one of my videos or one of my shows about it, was that one of the first things I learned in defensive scheme in football is quarterbacks don't throw to empty grass. So even if you're in zone coverage, if nobody's in your zone, find some freaking work. And that's something that we struggled with defensively. And that's a scheme thing. The reason I bring it up now is because on that play where Cooper Kupp scored the touchdown, Jordan Brooks could have been there, but it was Ryan Neal was the one all by himself covering absolutely nobody in the end zone. I'd like to point the finger to the coaching staff. I'd like to point the finger and say it was poor scheming and poor coaching, and they should have known that they needed to slide over because it was overloaded to the right. And that's how you beat zone coverage, is by overloading certain areas of the zone and focusing on it. Knowing that that's going to be our weakness, we should have slid our coverage. That being said, there have been times when Ryan Neal has been in the absolute wrong spot on our defense. I say we keep him. as our backup safety, knowing that, Jamal Adams has not been able to stay the healthiest. I'd like to see us keep him. Once again, coaching staff, question marks.
Daniel.
Yeah, I actually really like Ryan Neal as someone who also has some growth potential. I think that he can work on his leverage using the sideline, understanding the scheme better. But what I like about him is when he has an opportunity to tackle, he tackles hard. I think the effort's always there, and I like that he's versatile. He can play, he can back up Diggs, he can back up Jamal Adams, and he can also play on special teams. And I also don't think he's going to command a crazy amount of money on the open market. So I think we should bring him back. I like his attitude. I think he's a great guy to have in the locker room. And again, I think he can be a part of a winning team. So I like Ryan Neal a lot.
Yeah, a depth guy for sure. And he may not your top two out there on the field, but I think proper coaching, I think he's got the skills. He's just got to learn more and be coached up better. So, all right, let's go to the we all know there's not really a discussion about you mentioned Jamal Adams. Well, he's not going anywhere with as much as we invested in him, or I guess they could. I guess we can talk about Jamal Adams. Let's talk about him just from a standpoint of how bad this has been in terms of a trade, or do you guys not think it's not that bad? Jamal Adams' second season now with the Seahawks. I don't know if did he even get any sacks? 0, right? I don't think he got through the quarterback even one time. Nope. But 9.5 set the record last year, 0 this year. Injured now again. What's your guys' feeling? I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere. Is he? Jamal Adams, Squavo, your thoughts?
Terrible trade. Real quick, Norb, on the question you asked earlier, I saw some people in the chat talking about it, and they raised great points. In the draft where we got Rashad Penny, we traded back for that pick. We could have got Jair Alexander, and that would have been a serious difference maker for our team as a whole, let alone our secondary. Look, Jamal Adams was a horrible trade. And it looks even worse now, right? There was that. I think what we're figuring out here, because recently the drafting hasn't been too terrible, right? Trey Brown, D. Eskridge, we like those picks. Stone Forsythe, he got some action. He has potential down the line. And for where we found him, that's not a terrible pick. But the year before, the Jordan Brooks, we're drafting. We're Daryl Taylor now. We're drafting Alton Robinson. We're drafting better now. But it was that stretch of Jermaine Fetty, of Rashawn Penny, who couldn't stay healthy, of LJ Collier and Malik McDowell. That stretch right there, that stretch combined with the stretch of us trading all of our first round picks, that is what has really made us look horrible. And it's because of that stretch that we forced a trade like this. Another cornerback that we could have gotten for the same price as we got Jamal Adams was Jalen Ramsey. And instead he went to our division rival. And how does that deal look right now? He is the top corner in the if not the best corner in the NFL, he is at least top 5.
Rated 100 on Madden. At least last year he was.
He's electric, and we could have gone out and gotten him. This trade was horrible. When it first happened, Norb, we did that live reaction together. And what I said was, first of all, when I was talking about making this trade, I said a second-round pick and Bradley McDougald. But this trade could still work if and only if in the next 2 years Seattle won a Super Bowl. It's been 2 years. We've had our chance. This was a terrible trade, and now we lost a top 10 pick.
Boy, you make it sound worse than I was already thinking that it was. I remember when I reacted to that too. It was weird because I was very disappointed at the moment, and then I sort of gradually learned to embrace it and got real hopeful that it was going to be good. It just hasn't been good. Daniel, do you have any other? Is there a glass half full side to this whole thing, or is the glass just half empty?
When the trade happened, I was pretty excited. I'm always into win now mode. Here's why: because it's not my money. I'm also, not getting any younger. I would love to see us win. Winning cures all. what do I mean by this? Well, the Rams did the same thing. They've been trading draft picks like crazy to win now, and and it's working, and people aren't that upset. They've completely mortgaged their future, though. If they don't win it all this year, they're going to be super bummed. If they don't win next year, they're going to be super bummed, and then they're going to be screwed in the draft. That's the truth. But hey, they took their shot. And for us, thinking about it, last year it felt good because we won the division. Jamal Adams had 9.5 sacks. We're looking good. And this year, a lot of bad things happened. A lot of bad injuries happened. He got injured again. He's had no sacks. Teams started understanding what we're doing with him the first year. And then he started getting a few picks, right? And then things were looking up, and then he got injured again. So I would say that I'm not super upset, and here's why. Because if we had not made the trade, right, we would not have probably won the division last year. We would be even worse on defense. No offense to Bradley McDougald, but he's not a great player, and he's not a great safety. Who else would have played safety? At least, okay, maybe we would have had some of our young guys playing more. That would have been the good part. I'm sorry, who's the guy that got injured? Blair, right? Blair would have had much more playing time, and that would have been a good thing, but maybe he would have gotten injured anyway. So in my mind, right, let's just say we don't make the trade. We're pretty bad. We would have probably traded those picks back anyway and not drafted anyone number 9 or whoever overall. And so I'm still not at a point where I think it's the worst trade in the world. I'd still rather have a Pro Bowler than potential that might take a couple years to develop anyway. So that's how I am about the Mariners, and that's how I am about the Seahawks too at this point and where the organizations are. In hindsight, it wasn't a bad move. I would say at the time, because we had Russell in his prime. In hindsight, yeah, now it's easy to be like, oh, it sucks. But hey, if we start winning next year and he's healthy, I think everyone's going to forget about the draft picks.
No. For that price, though.
2 first-rounders.
We're going to get 4 for Russell.
Okay, you're getting ahead. You're getting ahead of the game here. You're getting ahead of the game. We haven't even gotten to the offense yet. All right. Let's talk about the safety who hasn't disappointed this year, Quandre Diggs. And we are at a point now where when the season comes to an end, one of our best secondary guys, hands down, I think. Hard to argue with that. But do we extend and pay him whatever it takes?
Yes.
Squabo.
Okay. Whatever it takes to keep Quandre Diggs. Not just because he's shown he can get his hands on the football, he can cover, he can hit. Those are 3 things that we need in our defense. But can we talk about how much better we would have been in pass coverage this year and last year if we did have Bradley McDougald instead of Jamal Adams? Just putting that out there. Why? Because with that money, we could have gotten a corner. With the money that we're paying Jamal Adams, the $18 million, we could have gotten a corner that would have helped out. And McDougald is just as bad as Jamal Adams in coverage, if not better.
We would have had his sacks though, last year, so maybe we wouldn't have got 12-4. Jamal Adams made some big plays last year.
And we wouldn't have won the division, and we would have had a first round pick last year and this year. Our team would be better overall.
The worst part about the whole Jamal Adams thing is that he injured what he got injured and knocked him out of the year was the same shoulder he gets operated on. And for a guy whose job is to light people up and to have that same shoulder being operated on so many times already, I'm concerned about that long term. Daniel, Quandre Diggs, no question. Pay the man, sign the man.
I think we should absolutely sign him. I don't know how good of an idea it would be to have like a 4 or 5 year extension, but I think anything between 2 and 3 years, go ahead and pay him a lot. Go ahead and give him $18 million. I don't care. It's not my money, but I would love to have him back. Yeah, absolutely, pay the man. But I would not give him a 5-year deal. Not at this point in his career.
18's too much.
You said whatever, bro. You said whatever.
Okay. That is for $18 million is what we pay for Jamal Adams because he was getting pressure on the quarterback, because he got 9.5 sacks. Traditionally, before that, safeties were getting about $15 million. So if we give him $16 million, I'm cool with that. 17 is pushing it. 18, he needs to get more sacks.
See, that's the thing that I don't understand about us fans. It's not our money, so who cares if it's 16, 17, or $18 million? It makes no difference.
It's not like we missed the money. It's knowing that we can't spend that somewhere else, right? Because of that thing called the cap. That's what we worry about, because we know that we spent 18 here, we don't have 18 more to spend on that offensive lineman that we really want, or that cornerback that we really want, or the deep offensive tackle that we're gonna need.
Yo, once you wipe out Russell's $30 million, we're good.
We're not talking about Russ yet. We're not talking about Russ yet. Stop getting ahead, the cart before the horse. We're not there yet. All right, Alina Dahl asked, we addressed this at the beginning, Alina, about Jason Myers. We had a little bit of Squabo and Daniel said, yes, he's done. He's had his chance. He blew it. I was kind of more into second chances with Jason Myers because he did have that perfect year last year on field goals. But the fellas think that he's done and we should move on and get somebody else. All right, that, I think, wraps up our talk on the defense. We left a few names out, but those are the crucial ones. So let's go to the offensive side. I know everybody wants to get to the Russell Wilson. You guys want to get to the Russell Wilson thing, but I'm not going to let you go there yet. Let's start in the trenches, because that's really where the game is won and lost. So the offensive line, boy, it's a mixed bag depending on who you ask, but I want to break it down and see what you guys think. Let's start at the center of the line and work our way out. So the center, we had two of them. We had Fuller, and then we switched to Posick. So right now the starter is Ethan Posick with Kyle Fuller as the backup. Let's just talk about the starters. Ethan Posick, move on, done. What do you think, Squabo?
Great backup. If we can get him for a $2 million, $1 million deal, bring him as the backup. But especially because he's versatile, he can play both guard positions. He cannot be our starter again. And I was saying that before last year, and I'm saying that after this year. He was 32nd in the NFL in terms of his amount of snaps played at center, and yet he's giving up the 8th most amount of sacks at the position. Unacceptable. We need, at that position, the most important position on the offensive line, arguably in football. He's the only other person that touches the ball every single play. We need a stalwart there, not Ethan Posick.
I really miss Justin Britt. Is Justin Britt still playing? I know.
Houston.
How's he doing?
He's good. Well, we just played against him.
Yeah, on a crappy team, but it was so bad the way that worked, how that ended. On the final year that he would have been with the Seahawks, he gets injured, blows out his knee. Just wasn't going to work out. But, man, he was the best center we've had since Max Unger. You know, and gosh, it's just been tough, man. Daniel, Ethan Posick. Daniel seems to have been locked up there. Daniel, is still with us? Daniel, I think, might be having some internet issues. Wait, hold on a second.
Yo,
Daniel, there you go.
Oh, well.
There you go. There's two of you. All right, there's the Daniel that's actually alive. Okay, Ethan Posick.
Yeah, I agree with Squabo. I think backup. Otherwise, bye-bye. We need to have the number one aspect of being a lineman to be violence. We need them to be a little crazy. We need them to be super physical, whether they're pass blocking or run blocking. They need to be a little crazy. And these guys are a little too nice. I think Ethan Posick's a little bit too normal for me. I need a little bit more Breno Giacomini, I need a little bit more. If you had 1% of Walter Jones, that'd be nice. But anyway, the point is, these guys they're too nice, right? They're too nice.
Who was our former coach back in, who only had 1 year in 2009? Former Atlanta coach before he came here, before Pete Carroll was signed. 2005 went 5-11.
Joe Mora?
Jim Mora.
Jim Mora.
As he was famously quoted the short stint that he was here, we need dirt bags.
Yes.
That's what you're looking for. We need dirt bags on the line of scrimmage on the offensive line. That's the word you're looking for, dirt bags. Yes, we do. So I'm with you. I think my friend Pat, who I sit with at games, he had an interesting theory. He said we should move him from center, but he could play guard instead. but we'll talk about the other positions there. Okay, so sounds like out of there. That means we need a new center. Let's talk about our guards. Let's start with Damian Lewis, our second year, isn't it, Damian? Second year player. How do you feel about Damian Lewis? How's he done?
If we're judging him based on the penalties that the refs called, then he underperformed. But there were too many times this year where he got a penalty that I didn't think was appropriate. I say we keep him. I say we move forward with him. He did good enough. I want to see him continue to improve, but the guards are not the problem right now. Along the lines of what you guys were talking about, my old offensive line, I was a center. My old offensive line coach used to tell us, he was like, yeah, I don't want any of my offensive linemen. Like, I wouldn't want any of you guys to date my daughter. And right now that can be a problem, right? I would allow Ethan Posick to date my daughter. That's the problem. I wouldn't allow Gabe Jackson. I wouldn't allow Damian Lewis, but I would allow Ethan Posick.
All right. So you're okay with Damian Lewis. Daniel, keep Damian there? I mean, he's only second year, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of those guys that was really affected by being injured this year. I think his elbow injury was serious. I think he also had some other stuff going on. I like him a lot. I think he's got great pedigree coming from championship LSU squad that really knew how to run the ball. So I think he's also been playing against, probably the best division in football. I think he's going to have a big third year if he's healthy. So I have no issue keeping Damian Lewis next season.
All right. So to the right, and I don't remember what deal we signed Gabe Jackson to our right guard. His performance, and should he be here for longer? Squabo.
He was our best offensive lineman this year. And I keep him. We need him. We paid him. We got him. Keep him. Our guards are not the problems. Center and tackles.
All right, Daniel, agreed?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Gabe Jackson this year, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of penalties, not a lot of false starts, and we've run the ball pretty decently on the right side this year. So I have no issue with Gabe Jackson. I think we gave him two years, maybe $9 million. I don't know, but I'd do it again. He's not the problem, as Squabo said.
Cameron Hughes says he has 2 or 3 more years left on his contract. As we know, though, those contracts can anytime be severed. So the duration really doesn't mean anything on paper. It's really what the team decides to do on the guaranteed money that they have. But yeah, agreed. You don't hear his name. That's usually a good thing. Damian Lewis, remember that penalty he got for holding? And the dude basically just plowed him over. That was as bad as the... Yeah, which one? The one I can't remember which one it was. It was so bad. But it was almost as bad as the Bless Austin. Yeah, same when the Bless Austin got called for holding when he pushed Cooper Kupp down, and he never even grabbed anything. How do you call it holding? And to hold something, you need to actually have something in your hand, right, and actually hold on to something for it to be called holding. Anyway, I'm getting a little pissed off about that. But all right, let's move on to the outside now. Let's go to right tackle. It was Brandon Shell. Then he got injured, and now it's Jake Curhan and Stone Forsythe are kind of the backups there. So Brandon Shell, first of all, does he stay or go, and do we move on to the guys behind? Squabo, what's our situation there on the right tackle?
Brandon Shell needs to go, but I was saying that before this season. He had the 59th most amount of snaps at right tackle and gave up the 37th most amount of sacks. So I don't like those numbers. You shouldn't be giving up way more sacks than you are, in your position ranked in terms of the amount of snaps that you're playing. We'll talk about that when we get to left tackle as well. Brandon Shell needs to go. Our tackle positions are extremely, extremely important, especially when you're rolling out. I was impressed by Curhan. I liked how he played. He was feisty, and that wasn't the only position that he played. He bounced around a little bit. He was very versatile. That's why Curhan needs to stay as a backup around the entire offensive line. He's our new He's our new George Fant. That's what Curhan is. But Brandon Shell needs to go.
And so the new George Fant without the reception. Okay, so he's not the starting right tackle. He's more of a backup guy.
Sixth lineman.
So we're looking for a right tackle then, in your opinion. That's on the list.
Been.
That's on the wish list. Okay, Daniel?
Brandon Shell is so nice. He's like the nicest guy ever. so therefore I'm sorry, but you can't be starting on the team. It's going to be a no for me. I don't know if you've ever seen an interview with Brandon Shell, but he's got to be the nicest guy in the world.
Not dirtbag enough, huh? Not enough dirt in the bag.
Nope.
All right.
Curhan, I've been very pleasantly surprised about, actually. You know,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Stone Forsythe has just a cool ass name. Stone Forsythe. Sounds more like an action hero, right? Or a villain character or something. Yeah. All right. Brandon Shell, I think we all unanimously feel like that's got to go. All right. So now the tough one and the most important one on the offensive line, the offensive left tackle, currently held by Dwayne Brown, still playing the position, but he certainly is not playing like Dwayne Brown of old, and definitely not a Walter Jones. I've seen way too many missed situations there. But what do we do at left tackle? The most important, protecting the blind side. Is he done? And where do we go from here, Squabo?
If you want to see, if you were to make a book or a movie or a video on how Russell Wilson lies, look at his press conference from today and see how he spoke about Dwayne Brown's performance this year, because he is full of S. And I like that. Dwayne Brown had the 31st most snaps of a left tackle this year, right? So he was around the lower side of there were 30 other guys that had more snaps than him. And yet he gave up the 4th most amount of sacks out of everyone at that position. He gave up a career year. He gave up a year that would have got one of our guys paid somewhere else more than we would pay them here. He gave up 8 sacks. 8 sacks. Dwayne Brown was bad. On run blocking, he was solid. Pass blocking, he was terrible. He was getting beat by speed. He was getting beat by power. Dwayne Brown needs to go.
Man.
And it was starting to look bad last year. It wasn't just this year. It was starting to show its cracks in the foundation last year. Daniel, different take? You seem to be laughing in agreement.
I think Squabble nailed it. I think we can all see it with our eyes. It's another thing. You know, here's the thing. It reminds me of Russell Wilson putting on his GM hat and saying, you know who we should get at the end of their career, who I really believe in? I've seen him on TV a lot. Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen's going to be a great tight end for us. You know, let's go get Dwayne Brown. Let's give up a really solid pass rusher and some draft picks and pay the guy a lot of money. Look, he had a couple good years with us. But the truth is, I think Russell is going to be unhappy if we get rid of Dwayne Brown, but we'll also be a better team if we go younger and save the money, because people forget he was trying to get an extension before this season and almost held out, and they reworked his contract. John Schneider was like, dude, we can't give you 3 more years. Like, we don't know if you're going to make it through this year. And like, he doesn't practice, right? Like, no offense, that guy does have dirtbag in him, and he's been a really solid player, but he's probably going to retire after this year. And if he doesn't retire, he's going to go to a team that's desperate for a tackle, and it's not going to be fun. He's going to play for the Jets or something next to George Fant, or he's going to play for the Bears with Jermaine Ifedi. I don't know why Russell, by the way, wants to go to the Bears and play with Jermaine Ifedi again. That's a weird. Why would you want to do that, Russell? Anyway,
Bruce Irvin and Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right. It's we're not on that. We're getting there. We're not there yet. All right. Okay, so I think we all agree. We all agree that Dwayne Brown is no longer the solution. I don't know where we find the solution though at left tackle. The most important. Where are we going to find the replacement? I don't know.
And just if I may, real quick, I think Wilson is more on board with us moving on from Dwayne Brown than he will let on. That's why I say look at the press conference and look at how he's lying when he talks about Dwayne Brown's performance. Wilson has to say the right thing. He has to support it. He can't just call out his offensive lineman. Then his offensive lineman takes one play off and Wilson gets injured again. So I think Wilson knows good and dang well what he was doing in the press conference as well as what he's doing behind the scenes. And what he's doing behind the scenes, I feel like he's going up to Jerry like, hey, you know what I'm saying? I want to stay, but only under these conditions. You're going to have to move these pieces, and Dwayne Brown might be one of them.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah, I listened. You're talking about his press conference today where he was asked about the lineman?
He also implied multiple times that he may be moving on, which I've never seen him do so bluntly as well.
I have that quote. I'm gonna bring that up, but I didn't want to get into it yet because we're not the quarterback position.
The tone of it was alarming.
he actually used the word beautiful in describing Ethan Posic's performance at center. Beautiful. It's like I listened. I was like, beautiful. First of all, you wouldn't describe anyone's performance on the offensive line. You should never describe a dirtbag as beautiful. They don't go hand in hand. But he basically was a long-winded answer to not answering the question. He said, how did you feel about their performance? He just basically listed every single guy and said how great they were, but never actually said what he thought about the offensive line's performance. Anyway, it's getting harder and harder to listen to the press conferences because you feel like you're just hearing a lot of loads of cliches and lines, unfortunately. But what's he supposed to do, right? What's he going to do? And what can you do half the time? Because if you say what's really on your mind in a press conference, you get railed for it. If you don't say enough, you get railed for that, right? The whole Marshawn Lynch thing. Anyway, so let's expand out now. We finished talking about the offensive line, so let's start talking about, I guess let's go to tight ends. Let's go tight end. Gerald Everett. Boy, we just heralded this move, right? Oh, we're getting the Rams guy. He was the number one guy. This tight end is going to revolutionize everything on the Seattle offense. He's had some productivity, had some plays where coughed it up. Luckily, we still won a game where we could have easily lost the game because of his not holding onto the ball or dropping balls when he shouldn't. But Gerald Everett, what's you guys overall feel? It's a weird one on this one. Squabo.
I'm going to just make your job and my job a lot easier. Every skill position outside of running back, Seattle, stay the same. We have a Super Bowl caliber roster. Quarterback, if Rashad Penny stays healthy, running back, 2 wide receivers, our tight end departments are good enough to win the Super Bowl. The problem is the scheme and the big man with oversight over the offense.
Uh-oh.
And you're saying not Shane Waldron, Pete Carroll is what you're saying.
Hey, big man.
Okay, we're not there yet.
The dude that's setting our BS meter off every press conference.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So we're gonna summarize. So we're gonna simplify this. So basically, you've wiped out everything. We can just take the shortcut, bypass the go, skip jail, and all that stuff. Daniel, do you agree on the blanket statement?
I think we need to make an upgrade at Alex Collins' position. I'm fine with bringing back Carson, of course. Rashad Penny, I'd like to re-sign him, give him a shot again. I also don't think he's going to command that much in the open market, and I think we know him the best. I think there is some goodwill there that we never gave up on him. I like Travis Homer. I like DJ Dallas. They're also inexpensive. I like Freddie Swain. I like Tyler and DK, but it would be really nice to see D. Eskridge step up, Freddie Swain step up. I was surprised to not see as much out of Will Dissly this year in a contract year. I thought he had a really big season last year. It was pretty disappointing. I'd like to see us add another piece to the tight end room. I just don't know where we're going to get it. I'd like us to run it back with Gerald Everett. I think he was one of our more kind of sustainable pieces this year. He's pretty healthy minus the COVID week. He's productive overall, and I can trust him on third down, which I couldn't say about a lot of players this year. It's basically him and Tyler Lockett. Other than that, I saw a lot of DK Metcalf was not healthy. That was really tough to see this year, and he was in his head a lot. I think he cared a lot about his hair and being Dennis Rodman and forgot about all the rebounds Dennis Rodman had, and the productivity on the field. So I would say overall, yes, I share that. I don't think it matters if you don't have a good offensive line, and we don't right now. So it's tough for me to say Super Bowl caliber, but I also think that we're pretty close. It's just hard to see when there's all this other crap going on.
Okay, well, I want to back it up because I think you overspread your blanket, Squabble, when you said all of our skill positions are covered and just bring them all back. Because I'm with you on the receiving side, at least with our top two. We won't dissect DK Metcalf's mind right now or any of that stuff, but that's for later discussion. But we got to talk about the running backs.
Whoa,
I mean,
whoa, whoa. I've been saying that since before this year. Yes. I've been saying that since before this year. Carson needs to be gone. I said that last offseason. I said we needed to draft a running back last year in the draft, but we didn't because we took Penny in the first round a couple years ago. So I say we need, and when I said all the skill position, the one thing we need is another running back.
So we need one more
running back.
Okay, so Carson.
Collins.
Okay, let's switch to running back real quick. All right, because there's a lot of intriguing questions here. You brought up Alex Collins. He's not even supposed to be in the conversation. He's a backup guy. It was supposed to be Carson and Penny, and Alex Collins was just like a sideshow thing, right? He became the guy because everybody else was gone. So, okay, Carson, we have him for another year, right? Isn't he under contract for another year?
Yes,
I hope
it's a weird deal because it was like a 2-year deal with like a weird second year that wasn't guaranteed. I don't know. My concern is I don't even know if he's coming back. To be honest with you, with the whole neck thing, I don't think Carson's gonna come back. Sorry, yeah, Chris Carson. As much as I love the guy, and you know how much I've been a champion of Chris Carson, I'm afraid he's done because of the whole neck thing. You know, and no one's saying it. And the style of running. And yeah, he had the surgery and all that. And from what I read, it said, well, once you have the surgery, they can play again. But how many players have we lost because their neck became an issue? Cliff Averill, Cam Chancellor, going back to back in the days, our fullback, Max Strong. Once the neck became a factor in their health, their careers ended. I just don't see how Chris Carson bounces back from this. I'm just afraid. I didn't want it to happen, but I don't think he's going to come back. So if he's out, let's just say he's not playing, right? Then who do you have left? You've got Rashad Penny and then Alex Collins. You don't want that to be your guy you rely on. So let's talk about Rashad Penny for a second.
Collins has got to go. Collins is too nice. He's a super nice guy. I see him at a stadium in downtown Seattle. Super nice guy. Not a great starting running back.
He's a backup.
I feel like Daniel's like roster analysis all starts with the shake of a hand, and it's you shake their hand.
He wants everyone to be like the Oakland Raiders from like the 70s. Yeah, everyone's like a jerk, dirt bag, spitting in your face kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Rashad Penny, okay, so this is kind of like the Carlos Dunlap scenario. Was invisible for the first 2/3 of the year, and all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks, he's just off the charts, killing it, right? Looking like what they drafted him for. So what do you buy into more, the last 3 weeks of what he's done or the last 3 years of not being available for almost the entire time?
Well, the problem is he's injury prone, right? Because early on in the season, it wasn't that he wasn't playing; it's that he was injured, and he wasn't. Yeah. That's why since before last year, I've been saying we need a guy that at least historically has been able to stay on the field. I was looking at a Javonte Williams. I was looking at a Jamar Jefferson. Two guys that were in the draft last year. Javonte Williams has had a heck of a year for Denver. Jamar Jefferson hasn't done anything for Detroit, but I feel like if we were to take him or a guy like him in Seattle, I feel like that's the way to go. We need a guy that we know is going to be there and that Rashad Penny can complement as a change of pace.
We could have had.
How do you know he's going to be there? I think that's what's tough about it, and it seems like more and more players aren't able to last like they used to. Again, why I say Bobby Wagner, what he's accomplished is amazing for not being injured as much as he's been playing every day, sacrificing his body to get all those record tackles. But even Derrick Henry, right? The human bowling ball. Dude's been gone for how many weeks? Cam Akers for the Rams out the entire season, might come back for the playoffs, but it's hard to find good running backs who stay healthy. I mean, look at our running back department. We didn't look at the beginning of almost every single year. We look and go, oh my God, we have so many running backs, right? We have running backs to spare. Like we have 5 running backs. Oh, what are we doing with all these running backs? And what happens? Gone. He's gone. He's gone. And all of a sudden, the last guy you'd ever put on the field is starting for you. It's like, how the hell did we get down to this? We don't even have Travis Homer. He was even injured at one point. At one point, I think we had one guy, like DJ Dallas was the only guy healthy. And we had to bring up a practice. We had to bring Josh, what's his face? What was the backup dude on our practice squad? We never played, but we brought him up. And then we got Adrian Peterson. Good for a week. Josh, was it? Josh something. Josh Jefferson. Oh, crap. I don't remember his name now. Josh Johnson. Thank you, chat. Narendra Manogaran. We had to resort to pulling Josh Johnson from the practice squad just to have enough potential bodies at running back. Anyway, I'm just saying how hard it is with all these guys we had lined up. Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas, Alex
Homer.
Collins, Travis Homer. We had to get Josh Johnson, Adrian Peterson. I mean, damn. It's been hard since Marshawn Lynch, man.
But DJ has been extremely reliable. What's really important, and because you're right, Norb, there is no way to predict that somebody is going to stay healthy. But one thing that we do know is that you don't get more healthy playing professional football. So if they have a bad track record of injuries,
you're talking about like in their college days.
In their college days or throughout their life.
Hold on.
It's harder to bring them in.
Rashad Penny had 0 injuries in college and in high school. His first injury was in the NFL, and then he had a bunch of them.
But
there was no history.
I'm talking about this year, though, and I'm saying this year, knowing that since we drafted him, he has been injured and injured and injured. So this year he's going to stay healthy?
Right. There is definitely a numbers game that happens in football, right? It's attrition. We do need to get probably 1 or 2 backs this offseason. Collins is not coming back. Adrian Peterson's not coming back. You need 2 more guys to throw in the mix and see who stays healthy. We don't know if Carson's going to come back. We don't know if Rashad Penny's going to have a real full season. He's never had one. And Travis Homer and DJ Dallas are still very unproven. So I think it's a big question mark this season. And I think if you told me before the season that we'd lose Carson and Russell at one point this year, I would not be surprised that we've had such a crappy season because we've invested a lot of money into them, but we've also built the entire off season around these guys, right? And DK, and he's been injured too. So I'm not surprised that we've had a rough season. We've had
so going back to Rashad Penny, what do you do with Rashad Penny? Because
you bring him back.
They didn't take up his 5th-year option.
You don't reach on that draft pick. You don't draft him earlier than he needed to be. Because that put a whole boatload of pressure on him, and then the injury happens, and then it turns into a mental health thing, and it's really because of the fact that we drafted him too early. I'm not a big fan of running backs in the first round of the draft unless you have everything else built, and this is the cherry on top. If you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can get away with it. But if you're anyone else, I draft my running backs in the 4th round, in the 5th round, in the 6th round, so it's not that big of an asset because that is one of the positions, if not the position, that's most likely to get injured.
Okay, but they already did it. They already pulled the trigger on him in the 1st round, so we're kind of stuck with that situation. That's right.
I think you re-sign him to something reasonable. I mean, you don't give him a 4-year, $48 million deal, but it might be a 1 year with a team option for year 2. Something reasonable. And again, it's not my money, so I don't care. So,
do we have club control over Rashad Penny? Does it work like that where we don't have to worry about him going to someone else? He's not like free agent.
I think we had an opportunity to pick up his option and we declined it. So I think he's unrestricted at the end of this year. I think.
So if he's putting on tape a bunch of stuff that other teams are going, ooh, that Rashad Penny, where's this guy been? We could potentially get outbid if the Seahawks want to pay him that much. All right, so but you guys are both feeling bring him back. So both of you feel like bring him back.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Nick's the super chat. Thank you so much. Says Seahawks draft Breece Hall from my Cyclones. I don't know Breece Hall. Do you guys know Breece Hall?
Oh yeah.
Iowa State.
Yeah. No. If we can get him for the right. Once again, I want my running backs in the draft 4th round, 5th round, 3rd at the earliest. But if we can get him there, I'm game.
Right, well, we know we've got a draft pick at that round. So
how do you
will he last that long?
If you're a run first team, you're Pete Carroll, and you want to run the ball, and then you're also saying don't draft a running back until later rounds. Well, again, I think it starts with the offensive line, and we need a running back. But we've drafted later in the rounds before, and who do we get? Travis Homer and DJ Dallas are really nice guys. They are really nice. But they're not no Marshawn or Chris Carson between the tackles. We need some scary dudes.
Well,
Right.
Chris Carson, what round was he again? Wasn't he sixth round?
Seventh round.
Seventh. And then Thomas Rawls was undrafted. I agree with you. It's about the offensive line. That's why those are your early round picks, your first rounds, your second rounds, your third rounds. Offensive line, and then you get that other guy because he's probably going to get injured, and anyone can run behind an offensive line that you've drafted early.
You know where the Bucks found a lot of their great offensive linemen? Division II and Division III football. Because the Seahawks for years and years have talked about, oh, we can't find any good offensive linemen. There's none out there. Meanwhile, other teams are looking in other places and not having that mindset. I think we've had a poor mindset on drafting offensive linemen for a long time now. We've kind of just given up, and we had that whole turn defensive players into offensive linemen thing for a while. That was terrible. We need to go back to getting some big boys from Iowa or something. You know what I mean? Like middle of nowhere kids where they just want to kill someone. Okay. Like legally.
George Kittle.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he has fun doing it. So he's not crazy. He just loves it. Devin Coy says in the chat, he said, Jonathan Taylor. Didn't we have a chance at Jonathan Taylor, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Didn't we have a shot at him?
And
where
Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, right?
Well, that's the one that hurts me. Seen that one. If we had a magical crystal ball, of course, a lot of teams would be thinking that too, right? But yeah, that's right. He did have a shot at him. Nick's back in the super chat says, "Yeah, I would think Brees would go 2 to 3, second or third round at latest. He's a monster, setting school and college records left and right."
Same thing with Rashad Penny. And CJ Procise was pretty good in college too. All these guys.
Yeah, we just could have gotten Penny in the second round. We could have got him in the second round is the thing, right? A little bit of a reach. All right, so I think that brings us back to one position we haven't gotten to yet. So I'm going to read this quote. So we've already talked about Russell Wilson, what he was kind of saying about how he was just shining up talking about how great his offensive line performed. So I didn't hear the press conference. I just saw some of the quotes on it. So one of the last things he said here, and there might be more, but he says, "I hope it's not my last game in Seattle, but at the same time, I know it won't be my last game in the NFL."
He said that twice.
That sounds like an ultimatum. That sounds like either y'all gonna listen to me, get rid of Pete, and make a lot of changes, or I'm going to be out of here. But I know I'm staying in the NFL. The question is Pete.
Oh.
All right, so I know Squavo has not pulled any punches when it comes to his opinion that Pete Carroll needs to go. So let's just lay that out straight up right here. Daniel has been flirting with this already, talking the other side that the Russell Wilson's already gone. So Daniel, I want to get your take on this whole thing. Quarterback, Russell Wilson, will he be back next season?
I think that Squabo's absolutely right. I think it is an ultimatum. I think he's got a really good pulse on it. I think Russell would love to come back and play with DK and Tyler. Of course. He'd love to come back and play with Gerald Everett. He'd love to come back and play with Bobby. He'd love to not sell his mansion. He'd love to have future be in the same school system he's been in. You know what I mean? Like all that. Okay. Russell and Sierra can fly wherever they want in the world. It doesn't matter where they live. And even if you live in the darkest, worst part of Medina, it's still Medina. And you have your yachts and your private jets, and you can fly wherever. Russell gave Sierra a ticket for her birthday last year. And you know what it was? It was basically a Willy Wonka golden ticket, wherever you want in the world, babe. Because they can do that. Money is not a problem. And he's like a mini god here, right? Mini god with a little G, right? But you know who challenges that is Pete Carroll. Pete is not only the head coach, but he's the VP of football operations. He's had a lot of control, and he's lost a step. I love Pete Carroll, but he's lost a step. He's lost some of the toughness. He lost some of his identity, his coaching philosophy. It started with the Super Bowl loss, right? He's lost some of the locker room. Ambitious World says Bobby's gone. I don't know about that. we might need to talk about that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know. I'm not sure where that is from.
Pete Carroll's lost a step, unfortunately. He's lost the locker room. I think that it's sad to say, but he's not been innovative enough. And his calling card is defense, and our defense has been struggling for most of the last several seasons. And so
Secondary.
the secondary in particular. So if that's your calling card, running the ball and defense, then it's a problem. And I will say this, someone in the comments said Russell Wilson hasn't lost a step. Of course he's lost a step, but players play, coaches coach, and right now the coaches aren't coaching very well, and the players have not played super well. But at the end of the day, who are you going to pick? And that's the question right now. I would pick the players. The players are ultimately the guys on the field, and there's been so many schematic issues over the last several years, and so much loss of toughness and philosophy that it starts at the top, unfortunately. And everyone that knows me knows I love Pete Carroll, but it's time to go. And it's taken me all season to get to this point. And I know it's one bad season, but I don't think it'll just magically right itself next season. If we just run it back, there's too much drama, and it's not the right vibe for a Super Bowl, unfortunately. And I'm sad. Really sad.
So Daniel, I think Pete Carroll's listening. He's messing with your internet, trying to get you to, stop talking. But so this whole broadcast, you've been saying Russell's gone. But what you're saying is the problem is Pete Carroll and the coaching. So what are you saying for next year?
I'm saying Russell has a gun to the Seahawks leadership's head and says, I will demand a trade to these teams, and I've expanded my list from these 4. Now it's these 6 or these 8 teams, and I'm going to leak it everywhere through my agent, and I will not play for you guys again if you don't do this, 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 and this. I totally agree with Squabo. I think that's, and he's not going to say it publicly, but that is sure what it feels like. That's what it really feels like.
So who's going to give? Because we all know that Pete Carroll, there's only 2 ways Pete Carroll leaves the Seahawks. One, he chooses to leave himself and just resign on his own accord, which I don't see that happening because he just signed an extension. Or Jody Allen would have to say, I know we just extended you, but I'm sorry, but your time is done here. And
what about
you
my
lose.
way? What about the way I've been talking about? Mutually agree to part ways. Both sides have to do with it.
Why would Pete leave?
Because he acknowledges he's lost a step, and he's moving on into retirement because he doesn't want to restart, and he's lost the locker room. You look at this locker room, right? You talk about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson isn't a guy that just does the bare minimum. He's never been that. He plays baseball and football at the same time, drafted into the MLB, and then goes and plays 3rd-round draft pick, turns into a starter through training camp, takes over the team, wins the Super Bowl. Then what's the next wall that he has to climb? Look at who he wakes up next to every single morning. Sierra, that's a singer, songwriter, dancer, model, actress, all of the above. He shoots for the stars with every single thing. So once he's won with Pete Carroll, the old-fashioned running the football way where he wasn't the reason, he wants to take it up a notch. Well, one way that he could do that is by going to a different city that he hasn't won, a bigger city, a bigger market, and winning there. That is a realistic thing. But he would do that if he's unable to get a new coaching staff, offensive-minded, that might make Russell the reason that we start winning here. So if we move off Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson has a new goal, a new step to achieve. He bought the Sounders. He wants a bigger goal. Norb, once you hit 10,000 subscribers, were you like, oh, I've peaked, that's it? Or were you like, let's go for 20,000, let's go for 30,000? That's what Russell Wilson's doing. He won a Super Bowl being a factor, but not the reason. Now he could be the reason with a new regime and a new head coach.
All right, so what you're saying, you guys basically say he wants to stay here. He wants to stay as the quarterback for Seattle only if certain conditions are met.
I think Russell only wants to stay if we win all the time. He doesn't. I think winning cures everything. I think he is being a prima donna right now. I do think we're overreacting on both sides. I think that Pete Carroll's not a terrible coach, and I also don't think Russell Wilson's perfect. I think that we've just had a lot of time to analyze recently some terrible, terrible losses. And I'm torn because either way, I'm going to be a Seahawks fan. If Russell is a prima donna and we trade him for 3 first-round draft picks, I'm still going to be watching the Seahawks. If we fire Pete Carroll and it's an awkward ending to a really great Seahawks career, I'm still going to watch the Seahawks. So honestly, I don't know what I feel, guys. I'm kind of torn.
You're not on this show to not have an opinion about it, though. So
I know. My opinion.
You're like Wilson in a press conference.
One of our mistakes as an organization was firing Brian Schottenheimer at the time we did, when his dad was dying, and they had an ego trip between, Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer after that one playoff loss, and they blew it up. That was a problem. That didn't need to happen. That was so unnecessary. That, I think, was bad. I think that was one of the things that made last offseason really, really awkward. And then the whole Dan Patrick thing and Russell Wilson, like, I'm Walter Payton Man of the Year. And then they put him on the spot talking about the offensive line. And then his agent, he leaks to his agent. That was all. That's breaking rule number one, Russell. Rule number 1 is protect the team, bro. You didn't protect the team.
Right.
And that is when it all started crumbling.
So Nick's in the I put the super chat out. He said the way this organization was headed, we were due for a season like this: winning records, wild card appearances, holding us together from collapse. Yeah, a lot of people think that, and there's a lot of people I know who also think that Russell's more to blame. Very contrary to what you guys are saying, who are saying that Russ, has not learned to be a pocket passer, that he's not putting in the work, he's spreading himself out too thin, he's doing too many things on the side now because he's no longer the first one in, last one to leave, studying film all the time, no time to sleep. Clearly, Russell Wilson is not the same guy he was in 2012, nor he should be, right? At that time, he was married, and that was it. Now he's got his wife, new wife, bunch of kids, all kinds of ventures, cologne, perfume, flying here, taking pictures here and all that. Clearly, if you're doing all that, you don't have the time to spend every waking moment studying football like you did. And I've got, certain people I know who think Sierra directly is to blame for Russell Wilson's failures. I don't necessarily agree with them, but the question is, do you have to be that guy that you were in 2012 in order to still be a successful quarterback now? Because I also think that when you're a rookie in 2012, you got to be spending all the time because you're learning to become that quarterback in here. But once you've been in the league 10 years, you don't need to work as hard to learn that because you've already been playing it. The experience plays into that. But I guess I'm asking, a long way of asking. So from a skill set standpoint, what I hear you guys saying is that if there's someone to blame for the failure of the Seahawks in 2021, it's not Russell Wilson, it's Pete Carroll and the coaches. That's the problem. And offensive line and all that stuff. If you had to choose between the two, the failure is not on Russell Wilson and his skills. It's the coaches and the head coach. Squabo, am I right?
No, you're a little bit. You're putting words in my mouth, but you're close. You're close. The reason that you're putting words in my mouth is because I didn't say 2021. 2020, wow, too many 20s. 2021 comes down to the injury of Russell Wilson. Because if that doesn't happen, last time we did a collab together, I brought up the statistics. Outside of the Rams game, which derailed the second Rams game that derailed our season, and we made a lot of arguments that the NFL had to do with that, right? We still had a chance to make the playoffs, and then that would have 100% changed how we approached the Chicago Bears game, right? So this year specifically went poorly because of Wilson's injury. We would have won that overtime game that we went to with Geno Smith at Pittsburgh, and we would have won at home versus New Orleans, where we only put up 10 points. Those are 2 games that would have completely shifted our season. But long term, we are trending in the wrong direction. And the long-term problem is Pete Carroll this year with Wilson's injury has given us an opportunity to see how poor Pete Carroll does without Wilson. And that is our opportunity to move on from a great one.
How many games has Russell won since he came back from the injury?
2.
How many games did we win when Russell was out?
1.
So Russell has one more win than Geno Smith during the time that he was in.
Well, he came back and he was still injured against Washington and against the Cardinals.
Too soon.
Dude, the Packers game was the worst. The first game back was 17-0. Ooh.
Geno beat Jacksonville. I could have played quarterback against Jacksonville.
Dude, I was at that game, and I can tell you.
They did look terrible.
Wilson injured would have beat Pittsburgh on the road and would have beat New Orleans at home. I'm confident in saying that because we went to overtime and we went to 10-13.
Guys, the truth is it's always everything. And it's a cop-out answer. It's the coaching, it's the players, it's the injuries, it's the COVID, it's the everything. It's also the other teams in our division. Yeah, the refs. Our division really made some significant moves. Before last offseason, the Cardinals did not have DeAndre Hopkins. They did not have AJ Green. They did not have what's his face?
JJ Watt.
Yeah, Zach Ertz, right?
James Conner.
The Rams didn't have freaking Matt Stafford. They had Jared Goff.
Von Miller.
Jared Goff is a perfect example of someone in football that's not scary. Right. Anyway, we need like nobody is scared of playing Russell right now because Russell is not himself. They're not scared of playing our running backs, our offensive line. They're a little bit scared of our defense, a little bit scared of our special teams, but offense, like everyone's like DK's a baby and whatever. Just don't let him like handle you in the first like 5 yards of the route. Other than that, we're soft. And nobody's like scared of Pete Carroll's mind. No one's like, oh, he's going to outsmart us. Oh, Ken Norton Jr. is going to outsmart us. Shane Waldron's going to outsmart us. Nobody. We need to get.
You know what? It feels like the league's figured us out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And maybe that's the thing is that it's a chess match, right? You do one thing, the read option's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then they study it and they figure out how to shut it down. Then you got to evolve and go, okay, can't run the read option anymore. Let's do this. So good teams, good coaches, they adapt. Good players adapt their game once they realize, oh, I can't do this anymore. Or I can't spin out of this and run around because I'm not that quick anymore. I'm 10 years older and a little bit thicker. I can't do as much as I did back in 2012. So how do I evolve my game to the next level? So, I mean, I think that's the thing. It feels like our evolution has stagnated. And, again, who's to blame on that? Maybe that's what you guys are going for in that point that you are making about Pete Carroll. Nick says in the super chat, the Jaguars game was my first Seahawks home game. Flew all the way from Iowa. It was a dream come true. Too bad Wilson didn't play, but it was great. All right, so one thing we didn't talk about is Ken Norton Jr., Shane Waldron. Now, I don't know if you lump all the coaches together as like with Pete Carroll goes, he takes the rest of them with him.
Yes.
Or do any of these guys deserve to stay even if Pete Carroll were to go?
Tom Izzo can stay. Special teams.
So basically, the coordinator's got to go. Both of them.
Yeah, I think
Ken
everybody
Norton Jr.
goes with Pete.
Figureheads.
I think everyone goes with Pete. Period. End of story. Especially Ken Norton. He's attached to Pete for sure.
That's for sure. Now, do you feel like let's say it's in a bubble. Let's say Pete Carroll doesn't get fired. Let's say in some magical situation, the two of them actually stay. All right, which I'm not ruling out as a possibility from my side of the fence. But if it just came down to coordinators, would you bring Shane Waldron back?
Gosh, he's bad.
Absolutely not.
He's bad.
No. I don't know if we've really seen him. I don't know if we've really seen his playbook. I just don't know if he's really.
And he's terrible.
If that was really his, if it was at his. Here's my thought though on that, and my friend Pat feels the same thing. This is his first year play calling, right? I bet he was a lot more of a yes man in the coaching system because he's his first year play calling under Pete Carroll, who's got a very strong idea of what he wants to have run. I don't know if we really saw what Shane Waldron had, because do you remember how they would talk about him in the offseason? Oh, he's so brilliant. His system is so sophisticated, but we never saw it. I don't believe it because it doesn't look like that. So I don't think it was ever brought out. I don't think he ever got a chance.
No, that's not true.
Daniel, Daniel, say that again?
Is he a good coach? And it doesn't matter how long he's done it. The results aren't there this year, therefore he's not. Like, there's no excuse. He had a terrible year.
Okay.
Wait, no, but Daniel, what were you saying just before that?
Hey, I'm saying Jesse just paid the $20 he owed me from a bet we made earlier this season. Thank you, Jesse.
Oh, is that what that is? I was wondering. I was about to shout that out. Here's the $20 I owe. We won one more game. Did we do this? Was this something you had on the side, or did we do this on the show?
No, we did this on your show, Norb. I said
that's right. Okay, that's right.
I guarantee the Seahawks will win at least one more game this season. Jesse said, "No, they won't." I was like, "Yeah, they will." Are you kidding me?
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Well, shout out to you, Jesse, for owning up and staying true to your word. It's sad that it turned out to be, but.
Speaking of bets, Norb, I do recall that you see these colors I'm wearing today, right? The crimson red.
Are you seriously gonna bring that up? We had a bad year. Aren't we?
No, I mean, come on. There's a dude that says, "Here's the $20 I owe," fresh in the chat. If that's not a reason to bring up the bet you haven't paid, I don't know what is.
Wait, what did we bet?
The Mountain Dew bet on the
Mountain Dew. You're right. See, that's why I thought you were coming over. I thought Squabble was coming over today. I thought you were going to be broadcasting from your parents' house. That's why when I saw all your stuff in the background, I was like, wait, why is Squabble still back in his own studio? You didn't make the trip over. So I guess I'm going to have to airmail
I started this channel, NorbCam, so that we can record all the bets that you make so that we can hold you accountable.
Hold me accountable for it. You're right. I totally forgot about it. I totally forgot. I owe you. the what Mountain Dew? What kind was it? Something specific, right?
It was either a 12 or a 24 pack. We're gonna have to check the tape.
It says 24. I think it was 12, and I was thinking 24. We're just regular Mountain Dew, or is it a certain kind of Mountain Dew? Mountain Dew comes different. I'm sorry, Diet Mountain Dew. I remember it wasn't just plain old Mountain Dew. Oh God. Okay, I owe you. I wish you were coming over, man. I was really looking forward to seeing you in person.
There's still a chance. So if the snow, because there's a foot of snow outside right now, if the snow's better by Saturday, I'll go.
Okay. It'll be better here. I don't know about where you're at. But, all right. Well, that's very cool that, that Jesse did that. That was awesome. All right. So you guys are done with Shane Waldron. Ken Norton Jr. Are we done with him? It seems like we keep seeing the same. We keep seeing the same rerun. Crappiest defense in the league. And then somehow he saves the job because he makes it better at the very end, just in the nick of time to avoid getting killed. He's like one of those characters on a show that you really want to see get killed because they annoy the hell out of you, but somehow they do something that just escape getting killed, so they make it to the next episode. So it's been that way for 2 years now, where it's like what you remember last, right? Oh wow, our defense is playing pretty good, so I guess he's all right. I felt like that's what happened last year. Like if it had been flipped and it started out where the defense was great and then it finished horrible and the offense was great at the beginning, or horrible at the beginning and great at the end, that it would have been the other way around. Ken Norton Jr. would have been fired and Schottenheimer would have stayed. But it's just because of the timing of what happened at the end of the season. But I don't know. Ken Norton Jr. Do you feel like he's run his course? We need to get fresh blood in there? I think, Daniel, you already said it. You're blaming coaching the whole time we were talking about the entire defense. So I think that goes without saying, right?
He by himself will not get fired. Jody Allen's not going to fire Ken Norton by himself or Shane Waldron by himself. They go if Pete goes, period. That's it. End of story. So if there's a 46% chance that Pete is gone, there's a 46% chance that Ken Norton's gone. That's it.
In other words, it's all or nothing. It's a package deal, right?
Yep.
They're Siamese twins. They're fused at the hip. One goes, they all go. If one stays, they all stay. Or at least those two stay. Squabo, you're done with him too?
Not only.
You're done with both of them.
am I done with all of them? But we're gonna see an entire. We're not just gonna see new coordinators. We're gonna see new scouts. We're gonna see potentially a new GM. I don't know if Schneider's gonna stay. I want to see Schneider. I'm not calling for Schneider's job. Let's make that clear. But I wouldn't be surprised if, as Pete goes, Schneider goes onto retirement, onto a bigger position, onto a different role, onto a different team. We're gonna have a whole new front office if Pete's gone.
Let me ask you something. People talk about retool versus rebuild, reworking, whatever. Is it if they keep Russell Wilson but they fire the head coach and all the coaches, is it still a rebuild?
That is 100% a rebuild.
Even if the quarterback is now, what if they keep all the coaches intact and Russell Wilson leaves? Is it a rebuild?
Yes,
it's a rebuild.
Absolutely.
So either way, if one or the other leaves, it's a rebuild.
I think if Russell gets replaced, then it's 100% a rebuild. If it's the coaching staff, then it's possible it could be a retool. It just depends on how intense the next guy comes in. Because here's the thing. If you do indeed kill the entire front office and all the scouts, then yeah, maybe the new person's like, hey, these kind of middling draft picks you guys chose, I'm going to clean house, just like Pete did when he came in. They did all that roster flipping at the beginning. It really depends on who it is. I think it's going to be really hard to replace Pete and John Schneider because of their relationship that they have together, but also the history in this organization. At the same time, like, I honestly would feel more confident had, if Paul Allen was still alive. Why? Because I know that Paul Allen's he has run multiple sports franchises before and was super passionate about the Seahawks, and you just can't have the same amount of leadership from his sister, who never intended for him to die and be left with the team. No matter how big a fan she is, she didn't want to be
it wasn't her thing.
The leader of the Seahawks. And so I think it's going to be her first really big decision, right? Like, are we going to stick with Pete and Russ, or is something going to change? And right now I'm leaning towards, all indications are the coaching staff is going to be in more trouble than the players, I think. I'm not saying I want this to happen. I ultimately think it's one bad year, but I do think we live in a world of what have you from Lee, and this season has been bad.
Bobby Prokopiak, he's been the one saying that Wilson's a diva. Wilson's the issue. Finishes by saying, if Wilson stays, we're done for years. Would rather rebuild with young guys than have him take up all our payroll. Bobby, by the way, back when we first won Super Bowl 48, and then in the years after 49, he sent me a whole bunch of Seahawks merch, which I donated and gave to a lot of different causes back at the time for fundraisers and stuff. So appreciate you, man. It's good to hear from you.
I feel like...
All right, so... Yeah, go ahead, Squabble. I have one last thing when we're about to wrap, but I want you to go ahead.
Just the vocabulary, I feel like, is where we're getting caught up here. Rebuild, retool. Retooling to me is KJ Wright to Jordan Brooks. Same goal, different body, right? It's filling a role. Rebuilding is creating an entirely new culture. It's creating a new environment. It's creating a new goal. The entire time we've had Pete Carroll, it's been run the ball down their throats, play excellent defense. When we get a new head coach, that goal is going to change. Otherwise, we shouldn't have got a new head coach. That's, to me, why it's a rebuild and not a retool.
Okay. But if it's a different quarterback, same coaching staff, you still said it's a rebuild, though, even though it's only one player.
That's not going to happen, y'all. That is
what? What's not going to happen?
Pete stays,
which is not going to happen?
They run back everybody except Russell. They run back the entire coaching staff and all of the skill players and all of the leadership. And Russell.
There's a scenario. What if? Okay, so here. What if the season finishes? Whatever. We win one, we lose one. We win two, we lose two. Doesn't really matter, right? It's a bad season. Russell could demand a trade. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't want to stay in Seattle. Maybe all the stuff he said about he wants to be here for 20 years is just like what he said about embellishing the line today. Just words. what's a press conference anyway? It's a stupid thing, really, when you think about it. Who's really honest at a press conference, right? Russell's not going to answer that question. How was our line this year? Well, we sucked. Dwayne Brown's old. He gave up too many. He's not going to be honest. So he's going to say all the stuff that you don't want to hear, but you have to hear because they're never going to say the truth. So the truth is somewhere in his own head, and maybe with his agent and probably his wife. There's only a handful of people who really know what he wants. But let's say he says, I'm just done in Seattle. I just don't want to be here, regardless of whether Pete's here or not. And if that's the case, or if Pete Carroll doesn't get fired or doesn't want to quit, and he doesn't want to be with him, then Pete's here to stay for the duration of whatever the contract he's got until he does get fired. And so then Russell Wilson could be the only one leaving if he truly himself doesn't want to be here and has already made up in his mind that he's done in Seattle. Maybe he made up that in his mind a year ago.
I hear you. Here's what I mean. What I'm saying is, if Russell demands a trade and he gets traded, if it were me, I would blow up most of the team and actually do a full rebuild, because it's your opportunity. And it would be like, hey, sorry, Bobby, there was really no point in paying you $20 million if we save $30 million from Russell leaving, then we go young on the quarterback, or we just get a stopgap for 1 year. We have Nick Foles come over one season to just be a stopgap while we draft someone, right? Or we draft someone in the first round and he's still a developing player, or we trade Russell to the New York Giants and we get Daniel Jones for a year. You know what I mean?
Oh, God,
it doesn't make sense to run back the whole team except full field if Russell won, or it's Russell stays and we try now again. There is no in between. We don't have.
I kind of agree with you. I kind of agree with you that if Russell's not here, then it doesn't make sense to pay Bobby Wagner $20 million if we're definitely kind of in a not win now feeling. And I guess it would depend on what they could do at quarterback. Well, what can you do when you don't even have a first round draft pick, right? This could have been a different scenario if we had one of those first round draft picks from Jamal Adams. Because imagine how the intrigue would really be. It's finishing 5-12 maybe is not the worst thing, because guess what? We get to draft here in the first round, but we don't. We don't get to enter, and there's no good quarterbacks in this draft anyway. So we're not finding the replacement for Russell Wilson anytime in the next year, maybe two, realistically, right? Geno Smith isn't your answer. You're not getting it from him or any of your backup quarterbacks. And I don't see anybody floating around out there who's the savior. Daniel Jones, seriously? Please don't say that.
I'm only saying that because of the New York Giants, that Russell would maybe want to play in New York.
Well, then maybe you do. And if that happens, then maybe we do get a bunch of first-round picks, and then suddenly, who knows what the direction of things. But it's not the year. But if it's not this year, when would be the year?
Next
All
year.
right, so I will just take this side of it because I know I'm completely in the minority in this group. But I do see a scenario where Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll could be back together next year.
Eternal optimist, NorbCam.
You want to put a bet on that?
Ooh.
I say we should put a bet on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's three scenarios, right?
I like your odds.
There's four scenarios. But I don't know how we do the bet exactly, but you guys already have your one set. There's four scenarios that can happen. Russell Wilson is gone and Pete stays. That's one. Number two, Pete's gone and Russ stays, right? Number three, Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll both gone. Number four, Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson both stay, status quo. Those are the four scenarios regarding the two most important people in this team, correct? Am I right?
Yes.
You guys are of number one, that Russell Wilson stays, Pete Carroll and company are gone, right? That's what you guys are betting on. And I'm betting on the number four, I think it's number four, where the two of them could still be back here, happy marriage, next year. And I know a lot of people don't think that's going to happen. So I'm willing to put a little something on it.
I was proposing we get the field. I'm saying somebody's gone.
It's too easy, though.
Well, how about this? Squabble gets option 1. I get 2 and 3. Norb, you get 4.
How about this? How about this? If both are gone, or if Russ is gone and Pete stays, nothing happens. But if I'm right, or if we're right, you pay us, and if you're right, we pay you.
Okay, so let me just understand. So in other words, if Pete Carroll and company are gone, Russ stays, you win.
Yep.
If both of them stay, I win.
Yep.
And if Russell's gone and Pete stays, nobody wins.
Yep.
And if they're all gone, nobody wins.
Yep. Except like maybe Coach Marsh.
No, here's the thing, Norb. If you win, you can keep all of Jesse's money. If you lose, not only do you have to give us Jesse's money, but you have to add $10 to it.
I was thinking about diet do or a steak.
So it kind of sucks that there's two of you because I got to pay both of y'all's. Wait, exactly. But I guess in the flip side, I win twice as much if I win, right? So basically, you're saying it's a $30 bet. $30 says.
Or you can get a nice steak at Squabble's.
I'm saying, yeah. It's hard to get together. It's a problem. Squabble lives all the way on the other side. $30, basically something along that line. $30 says, for me, I'm betting $30 that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are both back together next year.
And then
you guys are both betting. It should be. If I'm paying 30 to each of you, I'm risking 60, isn't it? Or is it split? It's a $30 total bet. So 15 and 15.
I just want a steak, man. If you can get whatever a steak costs, right? And then I'll pay you. I will pay you a steak.
$15 is a cheap steak. I don't know where you're going to get a $15 steak, but
that's what I'm saying.
Besides the frozen section in Safeway or something. All right. Well,
whatever.
Okay.
Whatever.
We agree on it.
All we know is Norb's going to lose, so it doesn't matter.
Oh man, I'll be enjoying saying, "See, I told you so." If it actually turns out to be the case,
with like a ribeye with
filet mignon. Robin Schaefer says, "Norb, my first time watching your live stream. I have to say I love it. I'm very interested in conversation. I think Dangerous needs to stay. He's a great leader. He needs support. In my opinion, love all the opinions." All right.
He's honestly been so annoying this year. Russell's been so annoying.
If I had to, I'm going crazy and betting option 1. Which was option 1 again?
I believe that was my option.
Was option 1 the one where Pete goes and Russ stays?
Norb, how about this? If we're gonna have Jesse's money as collateral, right? If we win, just pay us something. Just buy us a steak. And if you win, we'll buy you a steak, period. Like, who cares? Whatever. But Jesse's money is hanging out in escrow.
Got to throw some real estate into the equation, don't you? Okay. So am I buying a steak each? That's like 2 steaks. So are you two going in on 1 steak for me? Or are you going to buy me 2 steaks? I can eat a lot.
It's 2
I can take it home with me.
I will buy you a steak. I don't care. You can have 2 steaks if you want.
I'll buy you a steak too. It's 2 steaks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Steak. There's a steak dinner.
If you.
So I owe you
2 steaks. We'll stream it.
All right. That sounds good. We'll shake on it. We'll shake on it right there. There you go. Deal. All right. So we'll find out. I don't know when this will happen by. If it's going to happen, when would that happen? I can't. Well, it's going to be a long off season waiting for these house of cards to fall or not fall. But, man, it's going to be... So don't you feel like you just want the season to end just to get football season over?
You're just going to get a text from me saying, I want tomahawk steak. Medium
with a steak emoji? Is there a steak emoji?
And that's how you'll know.
I'm sure there is.
You'll know that Pete Carroll retired.
Oh, there's a good deal. Go to... Wu-Tang Life. So go to Denny's for your steak. Maybe I can get a $15 steak.
Hell yeah.
Hey, man, they got good breakfast there. What is it? Grand Slam. Good.
Medium well.
All right.
It's 9 o'clock. I need to eat some food.
I know. We're done. I said an hour. We've been going for 2.5. We're like longer than most major motion pictures. All right, so we're done, guys. I appreciate you all watching, but especially to my guest. Squavo says, all the way to UW, or what UW? Sorry, Wazoo. Wazoo. One slip of the tongue. Oops. Wazoo. Gonna be a future broadcaster. Just note it now when you watch this video. Get used to the name Squabo.
All the way from UW.
And of course, we got Daniel, my sponsor, Dovinh Group at Marketplace Sotheby's. Been enjoying this ride along with you, man. And 2 more games to go. Oh, we got to predict real quick before we end this. Detroit Lions. Does Seattle win? What's the score?
26-23. Hawks.
Daniel?
28-27 Lions.
Jeez. I've been overcalling games lately. I realized that these games are all going to be low scoring because our defense is playing better and our offense still continues to suck. 17-14. Seattle works it out in a very ugly win. That's my prediction, y'all's.
I take it back.
That's
We're gonna win 28-27. We'll win. We'll win.
Okay. That's a lot of touchdowns, man. That's 4 touchdowns.
You convinced him, Norb. I think it was the preseason.
Changed his mind real quick.
Yep.
All right. Well, it's been fun, guys. It's been very interesting. It'll be fun to see how much. I'm going to go back to this broadcast later when the year is up and all the changes have been made. We'll see how many we were right on and how many we were wrong on, especially the one that's got a steak dinner attached to it. Watch us all be wrong. That would be the ultimate. Just Jody decides, blow the whole thing up. Everybody's gone and nobody wins.
We moved to Missouri or something.
She sells the team. Oh my God, that's not even entertaining.
She's gonna sell it to Jeff Bezos.
She's gonna sell it to Marshawn Lynch. He'll be our new owner.
I'm just about that action.
That
boss.
would be cool. He needs to get a few more chickens though if he's gonna afford the cost of the Seahawks franchise. I think that's in the billions now. All right, guys, thank you so much.
I'm sorry. No matter what, we'll at least forget what bet we made.
Yeah, we got it here, and I owe you. I still owe you for the
We're all putting on our glasses now, Norb. So
I don't have any to put on. I just have my rose-colored glasses.
All right, y'all. Have a great night. Thanks for having me.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you guys. Good night. Go Hawks.